This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, good to see you on this Saturday afternoon, early evening. Rusty McCraney with you here at Meteo Mundo. We're going to go over the latest with now Hurricane Beryl. This was the reason why I wanted to come on at this specific time, because we were going to get the latest full update from the National Hurricane Center. And as of the 5 p.m. Saturday advisory right now, the Hurricane Center has made Beryl a hurricane with winds of 75 miles an hour. So we are going to deep dive into everything here, okay? Again, there's no time pressure. We're going to talk. We'll answer your questions. We'll get into the latest with all of the watches and the warnings. I appreciate, first of you, all of you finding the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for dropping in the comments section below. Happy to try and answer some of the questions. We have some moderators who will help some things out as well. Hopefully, as we go through the process, I'll be able to answer things. And, you know, we're going to take our time. We're going to go real slow with all the newest information. Now, because this just got upgraded to a hurricane, my system has actually yet to pick that up. So I'm hoping that it's going to do so in a couple of minutes here, and then we can talk about the very, very latest. But the bottom line, again, right now we have ourselves Hurricane Beryl, winds of 75 miles an hour. It is forecast to become a major Category 3 hurricane before it moves into the Windward Islands. Friends, I can't overstate it. This is going to be a very dangerous situation for our friends in the Windward Islands. We're going to get into it here. But again, the areas that we will be most concerned about are Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Martinique, Dominica, and Tobago. Those are the areas that are currently under hurricane warnings, hurricane watches, and tropical storm watches. The latest advisory from the Hurricane Center, as far as that goes, spells out like this. And you can see this on my map. When you see that red line over Barbados, that's going to be a hurricane warning. The hurricane watches are for St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. And then the lines in blue, those are your tropical storm watches. That is for Martinique, for Dominica, and for Tobago. Right now, there is not a tropical storm watch for Trinidad. The area in red that you see is actually for the next system that we're going to have to talk about. Yes, on the heels of Beryl, there is a high likelihood that we could actually have additional tropical formation moving through the same areas. Now, a lot of you have commented in the previous videos and in the live stream that we've been doing, and thank you so much for finding our live stream, that you've had a lot of heavy rain for today in these same areas. And friends, that has nothing to do with Beryl. There is another tropical wave moving through with an ample amount of moisture, and it's firing up the storms as we speak. I'm actually putting on the wind gust product here in just a second. We'll see the temperatures come on here. And again, at Meteo Mundo, I have access to all of this live information, so we always like to talk about the here and the now with these systems. And you can see, again, the temperatures are just in the 70s today with all of the moisture-laden air. We've had gusts well over 30 miles an hour. Barbados had a very strong wind gust earlier. Grenada and Tobago over 30-mile-an-hour winds. And again, I have access to the buoys across the world as well, so we can take a look at some buoy data as we go along. So let me just back out here real quick again, make sure here we haven't gotten the update yet from my system, but let's look at what Beryl is bringing us at the hour. First of all, if you were watching the live stream about an hour and a half ago, I was actually going back through all of this imagery and I was looking at the satellite because it really looked to me like we were getting a consolidation of thunderstorms in that central dense overcast. And Hurricane Center saw it, eye wall beginning to form, and that's why we now have Hurricane Beryl with winds of 75 miles an hour. I'm going to pause it for you right here, and we're going to take a look at this imagery. And again, thank you so much for joining, guys. I really appreciate it. And, you know, my goal here hopefully is to answer a lot of your questions. I'm going to kind of go through things once, and then I'll go back and we'll look at some of the questions. And again, you know, feel free to drop those in, and I'm going to try and answer every single one of them, I promise. Obviously, we're going to start off with what's going to be happening in the Windward Islands. But if I take off some of the tropical data here, just because it's going to be a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to dump the wind radii and all of that just for a second, because let's take a look at just what Beryl looks like when we're looking at the satellite imagery. Again, as we push the 5 o'clock hour here, you can clearly see a huge plume. Those are the blacks, those are the whites here on this infrared satellite imagery around Beryl. very unusual for the Western and Central Caribbean to have very little wind shear this time of the year. It's why we typically don't look for tropical waves in the Atlantic Basin, the main development region, we call it the MDR, to actually strengthen these storms. But there is extremely little wind shear. It all goes along with everything that I've been talking about for the last couple of months as to why most meteorologists expected this to be an active hurricane season. Now, again, we're 2 storms in. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play out, but it certainly looks that way, especially when you're talking about a major hurricane late June into early July in an area that typically doesn't even support a lot of tropical waves until August, September, and in October. We have an area of high pressure. It's extremely it's weak, but it's strong enough here, and it's at the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So if I zoom this out, there's just a little area of high pressure on the northern side of where Beryl's forming and moving, and the winds are going to be clockwise with an area of high pressure. Well, guess what? The trade winds with Beryl are also moving the storm from east to west. So there's no wind shear, all right, associated with where Beryl is trying to form, especially near that deep convection. And so this area of mid-level high pressure is just going to escort Beryl into the Windward Islands. Very little in the environment looks to impede rapid strengthening. And the Hurricane Center has mentioned that, guys. They don't take it very lightly here when they're talking about these storms. They don't mention rapid strengthening in a light fashion, but they have mentioned with this one that more than likely we're going to see some rapid strengthening, and that's why we have the potential for a Category 3 hurricane as it moves into the Windward Islands and the southern side of the Leeward Islands in general, excuse me, the Lesser Antilles in general. So again, there is Beryl, the moisture out ahead of it at this point in time. I'm going to do one thing real quick. I'm going to reset my system for about 10 seconds. Hopefully we get the hurricane plot on there. If not, we're just going to go with it. It'll eventually come on. Again, the Hurricane Center did issue their 5 p.m. advisory just a little bit earlier than what they typically do. Probably just giving some people some heads up here. Okay, let me see. Let me do this real quick. I might need to let it go for another 15, 20 seconds. Let me answer a few questions here as we get going. Good to see everyone, first of all, and thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we're going to go over, I know so many people are asking, what about my area? I promise you, we're going to go island by island. We're going to cover the Windward Islands. We're going to cover all the Lesser Antilles. There will be some potential impacts for places like Puerto Rico. And there we go. All right, we got it on there now. Still have the 2 o'clock as far as that, but I think everything else has updated. So I think we're good here now. Excellent. So let me just drop off this red area. And again, the note here in the change, and the reason why I wanted to make sure this was all completely updated, is that we now have that hurricane warning for Barbados. So let's talk about the timing of this, okay? As we step through time, we already have ourselves a Category 1 hurricane, all right? And again, when I show you these times right here, guys, this is going to be the initial time from the advisory. It's not the actual forecast time. This is going to be later tonight, maintaining Category 1 strength. As we get into tomorrow, we start to see this get stronger. A Category 2, winds of around 100 miles an hour. Then as we move very light into Sunday night and early Monday morning, that is this plot point right here, where we now have a major Category 3 hurricane with winds of 115 miles an hour and very, very close to our friends in Barbados. Let me drop off the current satellite data because I think it's just going to be a little bit easier to see. I mean, again, there's been a ton of rain and lightning in this area already. It's, you know, you guys don't need to get any of this, but you're already getting some of that. So when we look at this, first of all, again, impacts are going to be felt very wide from the center of circulation. The areas that you see in pink that are pulsating along that line, those are your hurricane force sustained winds, okay? There is an opportunity that these just slip south of Barbados, but Barbados should prepare and be preparing right now for hurricane conditions across the island. And we're going to talk about the impacts for these areas coming up. But again, hurricane warning for Barbados, and a hurricane warning means hurricane conditions are likely within the next 36 hours. For St. Lucia, for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, you have a hurricane watch, which in all likelihood is going to be updated to a warning. It's just all about timing because, again, hurricane warning impacts are within 36 hours. Then you have your tropical storm watch for Tobago and your tropical storm watch for Martinique and Dominica. This is going to be a relatively compact hurricane, okay, but we are going to have some wind fields that are relatively widespread. As a matter of fact here, the wind fields with Beryl right now, let's see, they extend, the hurricane force winds are only 10 miles from the center, and the tropical storm force winds are 60 miles from the center, even right now at this point in time. So if I bring on our spatial tool here, let's pop this puppy on, and just to kind of give you an idea, from that point, the southern tip of Barbados to the center is about 86 miles, okay? Certainly there's going to be a brush of some potential hurricane force winds for Barbados. Tropical storm force winds are going to be very likely out of that scenario, and even into Martinique and Dominica as we go through time as well. So again, if we look at this, you've got the center of circulation moving through the Grenadines right now, and from, let's say, St. Vincent up towards Martinique, it's about 110 miles, Dominica about 150. Again, with a hurricane, these are counterclockwise winds. On the north side, you're going to have the east winds, and they're going to be the strongest out there, and they're going to see some extremely fresh winds out of this. More than likely, you know, again, tropical storm strength for Martinique and Dominica, more than 40 miles an hour sustained, but gusts much higher than that. In these areas, again, we are looking at very, very significant impacts with a Category 3 hurricane, especially for Barbados with the way that the winds are going to be moving, all right? The east winds are going to be pushing a wall of water on the eastern side of the island, all right? And it's the same situation for anyone north of the center of circulation. Anywhere south, you're going to have the winds coming out of the west as the eye moves through. That's not going to have as much inundation of water, but anywhere to the north with the easterly winds, you're going to push a lot of water. Swells right now being forecast in about the 10 to 14 foot range, okay? Now this is going to be a fast moving system. It's going to be going around 20 miles an hour, which is what it is right now. And if I haven't given you guys the latest information here, again, 75 mile an hour winds moving west at 22, pressure's down to 992. It dropped 6 millibars in just 3 hours. It's an indication of this thing rapidly strengthening. Now, I'm going to show you the GFS model. We're going to look at the rain. We're going to look at the wind. We're going to take a look at all the different models and the impacts coming up for these areas. We'll put a pin in it very briefly just to, again, show you the cone, because down the line, we're going to have to worry about Beryl moving into the eastern and central sides of the Caribbean. Based on the hurricane center's track right now, it's going to make a fairly close brush to the southern coastline of Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, and then come very close, if not going over Jamaica on Wednesday, as still a Category 2 hurricane with winds potentially of around 100 miles an hour. As we get farther out in time, the models, as they typically do diverge. We'll look at the GFS model, which is a little bit farther north and then weaker because it interacts with Hispaniola more, and the European model, which is farther off to the south and staying stronger. But looking at the official forecast from the Hurricane Center right now, we still have ourselves a Category 1 hurricane 5 days out, moving through the northwest side of the Caribbean, potentially impacting the Cayman Islands, and then moving again potentially into the Yucatan and the northern sides of the Caribbean. So this is the new 5-day track, and I want you to notice how elongated this is. It's because Beryl is going to be a fast moving storm. Okay, probably maintaining that somewhere around 20 to low 20 mile per hour wind speeds, or excuse me, forward movement. So rainfall associated with Beryl is not going to be the biggest impact. It's going to be a fast enough moving storm where we're mainly looking at 3 to 6 inches of rain through the Windward Islands right now. We could obviously have some topography and heavy rain through portions of Hispaniola. By the way, even the northern side of the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are going to get 1 to 4 inches of rain and some easterly winds at around 30 to 35. So let's load up the models here. As I'm doing so, again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for liking this live stream. Thank you so much for all of the new subscribers here at Meteo Mundo. Really appreciate you guys finding the channel. You know, tropical weather is a passion of mine. I'm born and raised in Florida. Guys, I've been through it. I've been through so many hurricanes. When I was a teenager, the home that I grew up in on the west coast of Florida was flooded out with salt water. I know what it's like. I've worked in Oklahoma City. I've dealt with the tornadoes and the hail and all of that. So I'm with you. As someone who's had their home flooded out by a storm. It was the no-name storm, the March 1993 storm, believe it or not, but I've been there. So we're going to look again at the GFS model here first, okay? And we'll get into this other system. I mean, this could be a significant system. If you notice that this area is now in red, I don't want to brush the next one on the way underneath the table, but at the same point in time, we got to talk about Beryl first here. So once again, I'm going to dump kind of some of the official tracks. We'll bring them back on in just a second, but it's just clearer to see our two storms. Now, that obviously is Beryl. And we'll see what's going to happen with this second one. But again, all eyes on what's going to be going on here. So now let me switch over to the model timeline. So if you look at the top left-hand side of your screen, again, this is the GFS model. Now, every single model has trended stronger, okay? That has been the trends since we had TD number 2 form 24 hours ago. The other thing about this, guys, this is late June. And you know, I've been doing this for 25 years now. When we've had all this sea surface temperature so hot, and these storms have been so rapidly developing, the models are exceptional at forecasting the track and the forward speed, but they have not been able to handle how rapidly these storms have intensified. And I saw how aggressive the Hurricane Center was with their wording, even when it was a tropical depression. And so it's not shocking that we already have a hurricane. All of the environmental factors come into play to show us that this is going to be a very strong storm. So we have to expect there to be a major hurricane moving through the Windward Islands on our Monday. So we'll start to see some impacts late Sunday night. This is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. The first thing, obviously, you're going to start to see is we're going to get the wave action picking up. We're going to get some easterly swells coming into the islands. We're going to get some of the outer feeder bands working its way through with some tropical storm force gusts. Weather really goes downhill overnight into Monday morning. If you live in these areas, please check in with your local officials, your local government for all of the local messaging. I pass along any official information that I get, but it is your responsibility to check in with your local officials to any life-saving measures that you might need to take, any preparations for personal safety and for property as well. As we go into early Monday morning, we start to see the storm work its way close to Barbados and then over St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. Of course, there could still be some track changes, but the models are in very good agreement with this being the near track of this. I don't think it's going to wobble very much, okay? Now, I also want you to notice that on the GFS model, apologize, I went a little bit too far here. On the GFS model, we are seeing this storm actually intensify as it moves through the Windward Islands, okay? The GFS has this getting stronger right over the Grenadines and then moving into the Eastern Caribbean and staying as a Cat 2 to Cat 3 hurricane. Now, again, as we go through time, we get into our late Monday now to Tuesday afternoon, 3 o'clock. We're going to see lashing winds and rains for the Leeward Islands, the northern Leeward Islands, right? On over towards the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. Here comes the GFS with a farther north track, more interaction with Hispaniola, okay? It means more impacts for the Dominican Republic and Haiti, but we're gonna, if the GFS holds true, this is a very mountainous island, okay? A lot of topography, a lot of terrain, up to 11,000 foot peaks. A lot of dry air gets ingested on the north side of this system and it knocks it down in a hurry, all right? It would then struggle to maintain its intensity as it moves over Jamaica. Would still be a hurricane on the GFS model into Jamaica as we get into our Wednesday. This is 1 o'clock, all right? But it would be a weaker system on the GFS model. Still significant impacts are possible. I know we have a lot of viewers in Jamaica. I got you covered. We've got some time. People ask me, are there going to be watches or warnings? It's all a timing issue. They're going to issue hurricane watches and tropical storm watches 48 hours out from impact. They're going to issue the warnings 36 hours out from impact. That's why we have the watches and the warnings in the Windward Islands, and we're going to have to wait at least a day or two to see if they're going to issue anything for the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and then Jamaica for sure. But obviously on this track, and if it holds together, yes, down the road, you guys are going to see some watches and warnings. And again, this is going to be on Wednesday, pushing through. Now, the GFS model beyond this really has Beryl falling apart fairly quickly in the Northwest Caribbean. That is not the official forecast from the Hurricane Center, and that's not what most models do. So this scenario would not be great for Hispaniola, for the Dominican Republic and Haiti, because it will be closer with more emphasis and impacts for them. But it would start to tear that storm apart a little bit quicker. Now, on the heels of this, okay, so we get through Beryl and whatever it's going to bring, and we know it's going to be significant, and there is a possibility of another relatively significant storm on the heels of Beryl. Shouldn't be as strong, thank God. I mean, let's hope, right? Cold water upwelling, following the same path. The atmosphere is a little bit raked behind Beryl. You typically don't see the second trailing storm in the same path be nearly as strong as the first. But could it wrap up and be a tropical storm or maybe even a hurricane? It's plausible. It's absolutely plausible. And the Hurricane Center basically has this as a slam dunk to develop into a tropical system. So again, GFS model. I'm going to expand this out, put it into motion, grab a quick sip of my Gatorade. Appreciate you guys tuning in. First of all, a couple things. I want to thank all of our members here at Media Mundo. You can become a member for 99 cents a month. And one of the perks is you get custom badges and emojis for our live streams. So if you're a member, let me know in the comments, and you're going to have those custom badges and emojis, and I appreciate that support. You have a specific question, and there's so many of you in this chat. If you would want to use the super chat that does highlight for me so I can see it a little bit clearer, and just another way to support the channel. But I really appreciate all the support we've had the last few days with a lot of new subscribers, a lot of new members, a lot of likes on the videos and all of that. It certainly means a lot. So again, that's the GFS model with the wind, with the rain. Now we're going to look at the wind, and now we're going to get into the crux of it, guys, because the wind is going to be a big factor for us here. So let's switch over to our winds on the GFS model. Now, these are sustained winds at the surface level, all right? So these are going to be true inherent winds. And there's a couple of things here that I want to note from the Hurricane Center that is of importance here. They're talking about 115 to 120 mile an hour winds, okay? The problem with that is that they also talk about that the wind speeds on the windward sides of hills and mountains are often up to 30% stronger than the near surface winds indicated in the advisory, and in some elevated locations could be even greater. Could you imagine having 115 mile an hour wind and then adding 30% to that because of the terrain? It's plausible, and again, it's right there in the Hurricane Center's official wording for the 5 p.m. discussion. So friends in this area, please make sure that you are prepared for this. Let me make sure this is looped up. Okay, it is. Might take just a second here to get all the information on. I'll let it go, and then we'll take a look at it. Good to see you guys. Again, we're going to get into every area. I appreciate you. Hi, Antigua. How you doing? St. Lucia, Nassau, we're looking good. Is it dying down or not? No, it is not dying down. This is all go, unfortunately. We are going to be talking about a hurricane of major magnitude coming into the Windward Islands. So let's break this out and break this down. I'm going to show you several different models as far as track and wind, but we'll start off here with the one I can show you right now, and that's the GFS model. All right, going to back this up. We'll look at the time frame. So here we go. This is going to be late on our Sunday night. So just tomorrow night, guys, we're a little bit more than 24 hours away. Now, the GFS model is underdoing this. It's really sad to say, but we already have a 75 mile an hour hurricane. So the GFS has to play catch up here. It has to get some stronger winds. We're getting to 80 here, but quite honestly, it's not strong enough. Sad to say. I'm going to show you the HAFS models. That's the Hurricane Analysis and Forecast System. It's a newer model, but extremely productive and high resolution and good, where it's much stronger than this. Now the GFS starts to crank it up like it should be, all right? So this is 5 a.m. on our Monday morning, and brushing the coastline of Barbados, you can see it right here. We're going to, ping winds of over 100 miles an hour on that northern side. Now, obviously, the winds are going to be stronger near the eye wall, but not as significant to the south, and then they're going to tail off quicker to the south. You go north with the east winds, and you're going to have more significant winds there. But Barbados will start to see tropical storm conditions into hurricane conditions beginning overnight. By 2 a.m., these are sustained winds of already around 35 miles an hour. Then as we get into 5 a.m., it really goes down in just that 3-hour period, where now we're talking about really sustained tropical storm force winds and already teetering on the hurricane winds beginning to move through. As we stair step this one more notch here, so another 3 hours to 7:30. Again, on the GFS model, there's a high likelihood of hurricane force winds through Barbados, all right? I hate to say this, it might be a little too low, but towards Bridgetown there, southern sides, there's that opportunity. Over 80-mile-an-hour winds, more than likely even higher than that. And again, you can see the wind field here associated with the GFS model, 7 a.m. on Monday. As we get to daybreak, the winds start to pick up for Martinique, for St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I did label several of the Grenadine Islands on here for our friends who live in the Grenadines. I'll be honest, I don't know how to pronounce all of your names, but they're on the map for you guys, back down towards Grenada. Now, Tobago does have a tropical storm watch. And the biggest reason why is because, again, we're not going to sit here and say this is the absolute track, but I will say for my friends in Trinidad and Tobago, in Nueva Esparta out here, the coastline of Venezuela, as long as Beryl stays on this track, you guys are far enough south to more than likely not have the significant direct impacts. But there's enough of a difference going north that Grenada is included in what could be some of those very significant impacts. Now we'll go up the road here. You can start to see these winds freshen up. Dominica south towards Guadeloupe. I mean, look, the entire island chain is going to have fresh easterlies, 30 to 35 miles an hour, but Dominica south is obviously where the game really comes into play. Now let's go out one more stair step. So we're back to 10 a.m. now, and we really start to see these hurricane winds begin to try and get into St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia. These islands are obviously not significant enough, unfortunately, in size, if you will, to knock this storm down. We know that. It's going to almost pretend like they're not even there, unfortunately, but our thoughts are with everyone here. You know, when you're talking about a large-scale hurricane like this, there's got to be a lot more land interaction to really knock it down, unfortunately, which is why the GFS model has the storm continuing to get stronger as it goes through the Grenadines. And again, one more stair step in time, and we can see these winds continuing. At least 80, but again, I'm going to be quite honest. The GFS model is a little bit weaker than more than likely it should be. Now you start to see winds, you know, in that 40+ mile an hour range for Martinique, Dominica, fresh winds here, sustained at 30, Guadeloupe. Again, it starts to tail off, but these are going to be gusts up here. Anguilla, St. Bartholomew, Ceiba, Barbuda, 20 to 25, but 30 to 35 in gusts, and they'll pick up for the Virgin Islands and into Puerto Rico as well. And then this system marches away. And on the heels of that one, here comes another one. Now, just as a first glance, what would this look like on Wednesday? Yeah, it's a tropical storm. Right back into nearly these same areas. Okay, again, this is nothing as of yet, but a few days out from this, we might be having to deal with the second system. Now, as far as what Beryl does on the GFS model from here, let's follow it out real quick, and then we're going to get into the rest of the models, and we'll get into your questions as well. So let's watch Beryl. Now again, Beryl does two things on the GFS. The GFS has a little bit more wind shear and a little bit more interaction with our friends in the Dominican Republic and the coastline of Haiti, okay? So there's your winds, still at a hurricane force, but closer to, you know, a Cat 1 hurricane here, to be quite honest. Then let's stair step this out. You'll see those hurricane force winds may actually brush, especially the coastline of Haiti towards Lacaille. Our friends there in the Lacaille area could have the potential for some hurricane force winds as we get into Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. And then the GFS model has this moving over Jamaica. And again, the winds are significant, but with that land interaction, not as strong. I would not be relying on the GFS. More than likely, if it holds together, this is going to be a more significant storm moving into Jamaica as we get into our Wednesday. And again, we'll see what the watches and warnings bring. But that, my friends, is the GFS model. Now, there's plenty more to talk about here. We've got the European model. And again, I apologize that says TS Beryl, because I was making these graphics right before I came on, and then they put the hurricane warning out. So let's take a look at that. You've got yourself a stronger storm farther to the south on that black line, all right? So south of Jamaica, farther south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, right through the same areas of the Windward Islands, moving into the Western Caribbean, and more than likely holding together as it gets closer to the Yucatan and the northern sides of Central America. That would be a scenario where down the road, I'd be watching for places like Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Cancun and Cozumel, Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, and eventually into the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. But again, we're far enough out in time, and there's plenty of divergence in the models, even on the European model, where we're not going to concern ourselves too much with it, at least at this point in time. Let's look at the European model intensity. It has it right now on the black as a very strong category 1. That is the ensemble mean. But the deterministic, right, which is the first model run out of any of these, is a high-end Cat 2 to a low-end Cat 3. So there's the European model really picking up on the intensity. And by the way, that has gone up significantly since just this morning, where it was teetering right around Cat 1 strength as far as right on the edge. Now we're up to high-end Cat 1, Cat 2, even the possibility of a low-end Cat 3. And again, the official forecast for the Hurricane Center is a Category 3 hurricane. Let's take a look at the tropical models from Beryl. These are your spaghetti plots, guys. So these are your spaghetti plots that I show. And again, they're all just different models, but notice that almost every single one of them is above Cat 1 strength. And if you look at the bottom of your screen, this is the timeline. So again, as we get into July 1st, which is Monday, you can see that that is where we have some intensity. So basically all the models have Beryl continuing to strengthen, moving through the Windward Islands into the Eastern Caribbean, and then from there, at least holding its strength for a while. There is going to be a fair more wind shear as a possibility in those areas. It's not a guarantee, but there is a possibility for a little bit more wind shear, trying to knock that down a little bit. Now, these are the ones that I really want to talk about, okay? So we have a couple of newer models. They're called the HAFs A and HAF B. There's two different ones that run. This is Monday at 7 a.m. on the HAFs A model. Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenadines, Grenada, all right? Maximum winds on this screen are 109 miles an hour, obviously near the center of circulation, okay? So that is highest in Category 2. That obviously is stronger than what I just showed you on the GFS model, all right? So that is a significant high-end Category 2 with potential strengthening into a Category 3 before it moves into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So again, snapshot of the HAFs A model, 7 a.m., max winds on your screen, 109 miles an hour. This is the HAFs B model, okay? Same time frame, okay? Just the different model run. 7 a.m., but the max winds now are 129 miles an hour. We've blown through the Category 3, all right? You get to 111, that's your Category 3. Well, this has max winds of 129. Again, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenadines, Grenada. Obviously significant impacts, especially for Barbados, but then again into St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So on these two models, you have 109, 129, very similar position though, right? I mean, almost the same. The HAFs B is just slightly farther west, but only by probably about 25 miles. And everything that I've seen slides this just south of Barbados, and that's not good. Remember, the east winds, your counterclockwise cyclonic winds, are going to be driving a wall of water onto the eastern side of Barbados with this given scenario. Let's take a look at the GFS pressure plots. So now we're back to the GFS, going to loop this up over the next time frame, and you can see that moving through, okay? It's a little bit weaker as far as intensity, but it's still a strong storm. And again, as of note on the GFS model, it gets stronger and stronger as it moves through the island chain. That's the other scenario for us here, is that it gets stronger and stronger as it moves through. I want to show my chat here, guys. I'm trying to keep up with all of the chat, and I appreciate it. There we go. All right. Good to see you. I'm back on cam. But anyway, this is the GFS model. Same time frame, early Monday into Tuesday. Just to show you again, the position is very similar to the halves, very similar to the European model, slightly weaker but continuing to intensify as it moves through the Windward Islands and then emerging into the eastern side of the Caribbean and actually getting stronger as we get into our Tuesday morning. Let's take a look at the halves model through time. Okay, so basically with this floater image that I can show you, we're going to follow the halves model all the way through Beryl. So here comes Beryl coming into the Windward Islands right there. Look how intense it is. It's going to go through the Eastern Caribbean. It stays just short of getting into Hispaniola and Haiti, and then unfortunately goes right over Jamaica. This is a little bit more in line with the GFS model, but it's also stronger as it moves through the Eastern and the Central Caribbean, which of course down the line means we really have to pay attention for the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and my friends in Jamaica as well, with the potential for a still Category 2 hurricane to be moving into that area based on the model trends that we're seeing right now. So again, this is our floater image, basically just following the halves model as it follows Beryl and its potential projected track, which again will take it very close, if not over Jamaica, as we get into our Wednesday. Okay, the other big story here is going to be the wave action. Take a look at this, guys. Look at these waves. East winds with this, it's like a rainbow out there. You get into the light greens, you've now hit 10-foot waves, all right? But there's some 14, 15-foot swells that could be coming along for the ride. That's going to freshen up, by the way, into the Western Atlantic. So even places like the Bahamas and the east coast of Florida could see a surge of some very strong wave action in the easterly swells. Obviously with Beryl, and here comes Beryl, it's going to push this wall of water through the Caribbean. So the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico and Hispaniola and Jamaica all the way to the Caribbean coastline of Central America and even into the Gulf of Mexico. Some extremely significant wave action is expected with this. Obviously, mariners need to be very cautious. Now, that's the first system, Beryl. Look in the right-hand side of your screen. That's the next one on board, which is going to potentially have some double-digit waves to go along for the ride as well. So regardless, I mean, again, the wave action that Beryl and the other system behind it is going to bring is going to be absolutely crazy, double-digit waves. So let's talk about, as of the 5 o'clock advisory, what we have going on here. Hurricane warning for Barbados. Hurricane watch, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Grenada, tropical storm watch, Martinique, Dominica, and Tobago. Friends, if you live in these areas, please take this extremely seriously. Again, the official forecast is for a major Category 3 hurricane to be moving into your area on Monday morning. Now is the time to prepare. Check in with your local officials for local messaging and the forecast impacts in your area. But again, extremely significant impacts are likely in these areas. You're going to want to take preparations right now to save life and to save property in these areas. And the watches for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, and Grenada will be upgraded to warnings as we get closer to 36 hours out. And it wouldn't surprise me if the tropical storm watches, of course, get upgraded to at least warnings. Potential additional hurricane warnings could be issued as well. These are the general impacts expected in the Windward Islands. Maximum sustained winds of 115, and I made this graphic just before the 5 o'clock advisory, which now has winds of 120 miles an hour. So 115 is 185 kilometers an hour, a storm surge of 5 to 7 feet. Friends, we could have life-threatening flooding. We could have life-threatening storm surge. You really need to heed this in an extreme way. The easterly swells that come along with Beryl are forecast to be 10 to 14 feet in height. The rainfall, again, because Beryl is moving fast, is significant, but is not as much as it would be if Beryl was a slower moving system. So right now the forecast is for 3 to 6 inches of rain, that is 75 to 100 millimeters. And then power outages are obviously going to be very likely as Beryl moves through these areas. So those are the major impacts that I expect in this area. So I believe I actually have what I want loaded up for the next one. Okay, I do. So again, if you're just tuning in, I appreciate you guys. First of all, thank you for joining Meteo Mundo. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this live stream as well. I do have that updated information on Beryl. If I can, let's see, cooperate with me here. No, it didn't. All right, didn't cooperate. Never mind. Thought I had it, but it went away. So the other thing I want to talk about real quick, and then I'm going to get into all of your questions. I'm going to get into all of your questions here, is just this area in red. This is our next tropical system with a high likelihood of development. And so we really have to monitor this one as well, okay, as it moves across the very same areas. And again, the time frame would be sometime on Wednesday to get back into portions of the Lesser Antilles. I also don't want to neglect my friends in the Yucatan in Central America, Cancun, Belize City, Cozumel. We have Invest 94L. It hasn't developed yet. 40% chance of development in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. It will quickly move into northern Mexico, but the story of this invest has always been the amount of rain. And it's raining cats and dogs again through the Yucatan, an area that had been so dry for so long, and now they can't buy a dry day. But the storm here is bringing some extremely heavy rainfall and lightning to these areas. We've had heavy rain for the Cayman Islands and Jamaica the last couple of days as well. Just a very wet system there. Okay, friends, that's kind of the overview. Let's get into some of your questions, guys. Hit me, what we got? Now, obviously, we have a ton. I think I actually have the volume up here slightly. I'm going to scroll back up here, and we're going to get going. So, is Beryl a hurricane yet? Yes, Beryl is a hurricane, winds of 75 miles an hour. Again, for Jamaica, the biggest thing with my friends in Jamaica is we're just going to have to watch and wait and see what happens here over the next few days. Again, at this point in time, we don't have a watch or warning for Jamaica because you're just too far out. But if you look again at the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, this is a Category 2 hurricane coming your way on Wednesday. So I would certainly be in the back of my mind preparing, stocking up on supplies, and getting ready for potential hurricane impacts to Jamaica by midweek. Okay, obviously there's time for this to change. The forecast likely does change, but we have to pay heed to what the Hurricane Center is forecasting. And again, we don't ever follow the center line because impacts are expected in a lot bigger area than that. I mean, that cone of uncertainty encompasses a lot of the impacts, but the wind and certainly the wave impacts going to be felt in a lot bigger area. But anywhere near these lines, we have to assume that Beryl is going to hold together as the Hurricane Center is forecasting. Again, even here, you've got yourself a major hurricane with winds of 115 miles an hour. And on the official track, it only loses strength down to a Category 2, winds of around 100, as it potentially pushes right over Jamaica. That would be a bad track as well, just south of Jamaica. For the same reasons I mentioned in the Windward Islands, you're going to have those easterly winds. Okay, let me get back here. I'll tell you, I had a heck of a time. There we go. I have a, by the way, if you're wondering what heck am I grabbing, I have a tablet on a stand so I can see you guys and talk to you guys as well. Yeah, just again, looking at a few things here. Question about Puerto Rico. For Puerto Rico, here's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting 1 to 4 inches of rain for Puerto Rico. I'm expecting some winds out of the east of 30 to 35 miles an hour. It's indirect impacts for Puerto Rico. We're also going to be seeing, again, some long period easterly swells across this entire area, okay? So more indirect impacts for Puerto Rico at this point in time. Just trying to get a couple of messages I want to make sure that I got out as well. Let's see here. Yeah, so again, 1 to 4 inches for Puerto Rico, 2 to 6 inches for the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and that's Tuesday and into Wednesday. That's as far out as they've gone. So 1 to 4 Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, 2 to 6 for the Dominican Republic and Haiti, 3 to 6 inches in this area. And again, the rainfall isn't the most significant impact because Beryl will be moving at around 20 to maybe 23 miles an hour at that point in time. Very, very significant here on the satellite imagery, guys. Again, just kind of showing you what Beryl looks like right now if you're just tuning in. If you're just tuning in, by the way, Beryl is now a hurricane, all right? Winds are 75 miles an hour. Beryl is forecast to continue to rapidly strengthen and become a major Category 3 hurricane before landfall or moving over the windward islands throughout the day on Monday. And again, where it actually brushes land, we'll have to wait and see, but impacts are expected in a wide swath here across these areas. Carlin, watching from Tobago, where you guys are under a tropical storm watch at this point in time. I appreciate it. Gloria is watching from Dominica. Sabrina from Trinidad. James is watching from Barbados. Our friends, our thoughts are with all of you guys. I mean, in all seriousness, this is a very serious situation here with the Category 3 hurricane forecast in. I'm a cricket fan as well, and Barbados just got done with the ICC T20 tournament over June. Let me know if you guys watched that. I don't follow cricket that much, but I do know the rules. There was a channel here that I had for a time that actually I could watch cricket on, and I kind of fell in love with it. Very interesting sport. Like I said, I know what a wicket is. I know how you score runs. I know what an over is, stuff like that. But I was kind of following because the United States actually did pretty good in that tournament as well. Elia is watching from Trinidad. We've got Sheldon watching from Curacao. Good to see you guys. How are you doing? Let's see here. Hello, dear. What effects on Curacao? So for my friends in the ABC Islands, I hate to tell you this, but you guys are going to be watching this system move north and a lot of the rain moving away. Now, look, we don't want Beryl to bring impacts to anyone, okay? But the ABC Islands have been hurting for rain for quite some time. The best case scenario I have for the ABC Islands is as Beryl moves north, of course, you get the counterclockwise winds, a south wind basically right here. So this is going to be mainly on Tuesday. That's about your best chance. A south wind could take some of the rain and storms over the mainland and drag it across the ABC Islands as it wraps into Beryl. Okay. But there's also a little bit of drier air off towards the west as well. As a matter of fact, let me show you here on the visibles, on the satellite imagery. We'll take a look at some of the other satellite imagery too. I've got some really cool products to show you guys. This is the upper level water vapor imagery right here. You can see there's a little bit of drier air here as well. But there's no shear, right? There's nothing that's going to be stopping Beryl from going. And again, for everyone in this area who's been hit with some pretty heavy rain and storms, and by the way, that's your live lightning count here at Meteo Mundo. Again, on a daily basis, we'd be talking about, you know, the storms developing in the afternoon hours here, and the lightning count continues to go up. So there's ample moisture and rain already for some of these areas. But the ABC Islands, at best, is going to catch some brisk passing showers as your winds swing out of the south. And then behind that, you're going to have a southeast wind as Beryl pulls away. Again, the opportunity for a few showers, but there are no forecast direct impacts for the ABC Islands, an area that really could use some rain. Now, this moisture axis ahead of Beryl has an opportunity to work its way closer to your area. It's raining right now in places like Nueva Esparta, so it's getting closer. But as far as significant rain for the ABC Islands, no, I don't expect that. Jaden's watching from Trinidad and Tobago. I appreciate you. Puerto Rico, need a hurricane watch, yes or no? At this point in time, I wouldn't expect it. It's close. I think more indirect impacts there. It wouldn't, I don't believe so. To answer the question, is there going to be a tropical storm watch warning, hurricane watch warning for Puerto Rico? I think we can probably eliminate the hurricane watch warning. The tropical storm watch warning is a little bit more of a question mark, but based on this forecast track, and we can take a look at this real quickly as well here. I'll bring up the spatial tool again. Based on the forecast track here, from the south coastline of Puerto Rico to the center of circulation, we're about 230 miles. Even to the extent of the tropical storm force winds, we're still about 140 miles. They could issue a tropical storm watch for Puerto Rico, but more than likely not, just because hopefully we're going to stay a little bit farther off. Now, again, from the official track here, from places like Santo Domingo to the edge of the sustained, by the way, sustained tropical storm force winds here on our plot, we're about 80 miles. But again, the GFS is a little bit farther north, okay? And that wind field could be expanding a little bit more than that. But again, these are sustained winds, but certainly tropical storm force gusts coming into Punta Cana and Santo Domingo based on that track as well. And again, this follows very closely and then potentially near or over Jamaica on Wednesday as the official forecast track, a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 100 miles an hour. For my friends in the northern side of the Lesser Antilles and the Leeward Islands, again, for you guys, it's more about just the fresh east winds, probably in that 25 to 35 mile an hour range, some tropical downpours, but no direct impacts expected there. Guadalupe is about as far north as I would get, where we'd have to watch out for some sustained tropical storm force winds, but Dominica south for sure, Martinique, those are the tropical storm watches that are currently in effect. And there you go, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, and then on over towards Grenada are your tropical storm warnings. Hi, Angelica, watching from the British Virgin Islands. Good to see you there. A lot of friends from Jamaica. I hope I covered it. If there's a specific question, just let me know, but I'm happy to answer that. And again, I want to thank all of our subscribers here to Media Mundo. I want to thank all of our members. You'll see those. They'll have custom badges and emojis. Again, that's just 99 cents a month. If you would like to join the membership here, you can click the join button at Media Mundo. Thank you for your super thanks as well. Thank you for the support that you can find in the description below. I really appreciate all of that. And more than anything, thank you for your trust and joining me here for this live stream as we track Hurricane Beryl together. Let me take myself off camera for just 1 second. I'm going to bring back on one of the graphics here that I want to talk about, and then we'll move on. I want to bring back on this HAFS model because I think it's important to note here what the HAFS model is doing. And again, on the HAFS model, you're looking at a storm at 7 a.m. with 109 mile an hour winds. So this is a storm that would be right on the edge of a Category 3. Obviously, the impact for Barbados could be extremely significant at that point in time. But again, it's not the strongest one. The HAFS A and then to the HAFS B. Fortunately, looks like I lost that one. Stick with me here. There we go. All right. There's the HAFS B model right there with winds of 129 miles an hour. So we're looking at, again, Cat 2, low end Cat 3, with the official forecast being an actual Category 3 hurricane, which, again, for this time of the year, to be moving into the areas that it's moving into is extremely, extremely significant at this point in time. All right, I just wanted to load up my graphics system here real quick. Let's see here. Where are you? There we go. Okay, so again, we're looking at what's going on with Beryl right now. Let's take a look at some of the imagery here. I'm going to pull on some of the SAT imagery real quick. We can watch this together, guys, if you don't mind, because I'm very interested in the latest kind of nuances of what's going on here. So this is our enhanced satellite imagery. This is going to be our visible satellite imagery. Now we're going to lose the Viz satellite imagery because, of course, we lose the sunlight here. But just as we're losing that sunlight, that's very impressive. I want you to notice a couple of things on this map, things that I look for here. We have very concentric outflow. Do you see these bands? And everything is beginning to spiral around the central dense overcast. Relatively soon, we could start to see an eye wall really get going and there being an eye on our infrared satellite imagery. Obviously, we're going to lose the visible satellite imagery until we get into tomorrow morning, but certainly there's that track. By the way, the forecast models here are the spaghetti plots that I showed you earlier as far as the intensity, but you can see those are in pretty darn good agreement right now as to where they're going to be going. Just to show you that tight cluster, all right? So people ask me, is it going to potentially shift? Of course, the answer is it's plausible, but right now, there's a lot of agreement and consensus with our spaghetti plot models, our hurricane model, our tropical models that spit out the potential tracks in a pretty narrow window just south of Barbados, same areas that I've just mentioned, and then we follow that up, and you notice the Hurricane Center is following that line for the most part, where most of the models are going into Jamaica. Obviously, as we get farther out in time, we start to see there be a bit more of a spread, okay? Especially a couple of models a little bit farther south, where the European model is. Nothing takes it directly into Hispaniola, but gets it a little bit closer, especially the coastline of Haiti. But again, a lot of the models here, unfortunately, are still relatively clustered back in or near Jamaica as we get into Wednesday. So that's what I wanted to make sure I showed you that here on this plot as well. That is what we have as far as the forecast models. So back over to Beryl here again, extremely impressive. Let's get back over and look at a couple different things here. Let's take a look at this. This is a cool product. So this is the enhanced satellite imagery to go along with the visible satellite imagery as well. Take a look at that, guys. And I tell you what, just to make it a little bit easier, oops, let's see here. I'm going to knock off some of this information just so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. So this is the latest satellite imagery out of Beryl. This is what's coming our way to the Windward Islands. All right, and again, thank you for all the hearts. Thank you for all the likes as well. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching. So many different people are coming in here. And yeah, thank you for getting us to 500 likes as well. I'd appreciate that too. That would be pretty darn awesome. Thank you for all the support here. Again, keeping you covered at Meteo Mundo on this Saturday, late afternoon, early evening. We're losing the visible satellite imagery, but look right at the end. If you see this black here and that white, that's the central dense overcast. And there's a couple of different things to show you here as it just is beginning to wrap up a little bit more right as we lose the visible satellite imagery. But a really cool shot. This is going to be just the infrared imagery, and we can continue that on. Big blow up, very little wind shear, nothing stopping this from getting stronger. Lower level water vapor imagery. So this is what's happening basically at the surface. Big blow up of thunderstorms. Let's see how wide Beryl is. That's a good question. I'm asking myself this question. How wide is Beryl? Let's bring on our spatial tool again. Right now it's about 355 miles from kind of the moisture axis on a west to east fashion, north to south. So it gives you an idea, right? North to south, it's about 575 miles. All right, so what do we say, 350 on the west to east, is that right? Yeah, 350, 700-ish. So let me show you where I'm going with this. That's too far over. If I come into here, I mean, this whole area under the watches is just about 360 miles. So there are potential impacts farther north than that. Not again with hurricane force conditions, but again, it just shows you that, we're only talking about a north to south area of about 350 miles where we have our tropical storm watches. And again, I even went down towards Trinidad, but it's really Tobago, but it's close enough. But you get the idea that the impacts, because this is a relatively smaller area in general, are going to be felt throughout this entire region. And they're going to be felt relatively significantly as well. Let's take a look at the upper level water vapor imagery. So again, all of this moisture is not with Beryl. It's crazy to think that this that we're seeing today with the blow up of thunderstorms is actually not associated with Beryl. I've got the gusts as well. So I'm going to bring on the live data here at Meteo Mundo. These are your current temperatures on the board. And again, if you are a new subscriber to Meteo Mundo, have the ability to really look at the here and now pretty significantly. We've got live satellite, we've got live radar, we've got live lightning data, we've got live information from all of the reporting stations. Those are temperatures. These are your wind gusts at the hour. I can look at buoy data. So we can bring up the buoys that are in the Caribbean, that are in the Atlantic, that are worldwide as well. So here is a buoy that's sitting out to the north and west of Beryl, and that's picked up about a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust from time to time in some of the outer feeder bands. Again, we've had some gusts here in Grenada around 32 miles an hour the last couple of hours with the storms blowing up with the moisture ahead of it. It's been a relatively fresh wind through the rest of the Lesser Antilles and into the U.S. and British Virgin Islands as well. Those numbers are wind gusts in miles an hour. Also, I actually have the ability to access ships data. So if there was a ship traversing these waters that actually had some weather information that could pass along, I can access that as well. But this is going to become more important, of course, as Beryl gets closer, and we'll be able to monitor the wind gusts together for you live here at Meteo Mundo. Obviously, we'll be taking a look at the radar and the satellite data. And again, I have access to live lightning data as well, which is going to be important to really pick up on where the most intense storms are. So again, at the hour, you can see the storms moving over the Windward Islands. That's the live lightning count in the last 15 minutes. You can see the lightning moving through. So again, as we watch Beryl coming in, there'll be some intense thunderstorms. We'll be able to track those for you live here at Meteo Mundo as well. Okay, let me get back into some of the questions. Hey, we're almost at 400 likes. I appreciate you guys. What we should expect in Belize. So for the Western Caribbean, guys, it's just simply too early to tell. That's the bottom line. Now, Belize is getting the rain from Invest 94L right now, right? So here's Invest 94L. You guys are getting hit with more rain. So desperate for rain a couple of weeks ago. Now you guys are seeing too much rain in too short of amount of time. But as far as what happens with Beryl as it moves west, a lot to be determined still. Again, the official forecast from the Hurricane Center does have it entering the northwest side of the Caribbean as we get into our Thursday, still as a Category 1 hurricane. So, places like the Cayman Islands are going to have to monitor this. Again, when you see that date, obviously that was when it was last reported with the track, but it does have winds of 85 miles an hour still from the National Hurricane Center. So Belize, Cayman Islands, Jamaica, even Hispaniola down the road, we're going to have to watch it, but not more in the way of getting to definitive answers as of yet, except for the fact that the Hurricane Center has mentioned 1 to 4 inches of rain for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and 2 to 6 inches of rain for portions of Hispaniola. Now, again, that's just the rain. The wind is another going to be a big story as well. If you're just tuning in, the red area that basically covers Beryl through the Windward Islands is not associated with Beryl. It is with our next tropical wave with a high likelihood of development. So it really is going to be tough to talk about a 1-2 punch in this area, but that's what I think we're going to see. We're going to have a potential second tropical system moving through. The intensity yet to be determined, but there's a high likelihood that we might actually have our C-named storm coming back through this area no more than 48 to 72 hours after we had Beryl move through. And again, if you're just tuning in, Beryl is forecast to be a major Category 3 hurricane as it moves through the Windward Islands throughout the day on Monday, beginning to impact places like Barbados as we get into early Monday morning and through the rest of this area as we go through the remainder of Monday. Okay, let's see. Go back to any questions here. I am having a little bit of trouble. I have a touchpad and it is not appreciating me trying to go through these. I wish I could just scroll, but unfortunately I can't just scroll because I got myself a touchpad, but that's okay. We'll work it out. Here we go. All right, I'm in at the bottom now, so if I didn't answer your question, please drop back in and let me know. Ronald lives in St. Vincent and he says, we need your prayer. Absolutely. Our thoughts are with you guys. Extremely significant impacts expected for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. CJ says, I saw St. Lucia is in the sustained tropical wind circle. Will we in St. Lucia be getting sustained hurricane force winds? It is likely. You guys got to be right on the edge. Okay, you are under a hurricane watch in St. Lucia, which means hurricane conditions are possible within 48 hours. But as we get overnight into tomorrow, and then Beryl gets within 36 hours of impacting St. Lucia, there's a very high likelihood that will be upgraded to a hurricane warning, which means hurricane conditions are likely in that area. Now, maybe not all of St. Lucia, it'll be close. But again, the northern side of Beryl is going to be stronger with the clockwise winds. The right front quadrant is always the worst because you have the winds and you have the rotation all going in one direction on the north quadrant side, right? The right front quadrant side. So that is going to be moving over places like St. Lucia and Martinique. So that's a big problem. There's no doubt about it. Yes, to answer your question, I would anticipate hurricane conditions in St. Lucia, potentially even towards Martinique. Again, at this point in time, Martinique and Dominica are only under tropical storm watches, but those will be upgraded to at least tropical storm warnings. Again, it's really all about timing. We have to get within 36 hours of impacts expected for us to have that. Again, that is the actual rain falling right now. I'm just going to take off some of that data, and we're going to throw back on the models as well. Look at all that lightning moving through. I can't believe that you guys are dealing with that as well. Michael says Barbados is already very overcast with some rain. Sabrina says, so Trinidad, just rain, no worries. In general, Sabrina, yes. Okay, again, right now you guys are not under a tropical storm watch in Trinidad. Could you see tropical storm force gusts? Absolutely. But again, typically speaking, on the southern side of this system, we're going to be pulling in more westerly winds a drier wind as well. There'll be some feeder bands that could hit you guys, but right now on this track, if it holds true, Trinidad will miss the worst of the weather, okay? More indirect impacts than anything else. Doesn't mean that there might not be some good wave action coming through, but even then, you guys are gonna be pulling in a west wind and then eventually towards the south, so you're not gonna have that easterly wind pushing the wall of water any areas to the north. And it's gonna be really close for Grenada, okay? Grenada on this track line is south of the center of circulation, but close enough where they are expecting hurricane impacts across the island. That being said, if they can stay south of the center of circulation, they're not going to have as much water inundation with the storm surge because the winds are going to be more out of the west and then south, pulling some of that actually water away from the area. But anywhere north, and I have high concerns for Barbados as far as that goes. The Department of Meteorology from Barbados is excellent, by the way. If you live in Barbados, always check in with them for local messaging as well. They have a very robust website, very good forecasters. They keep on top of things there. And I saw earlier today that they were talking about 10 to 13 foot swells. And that goes along with the official forecast that I saw of around 10 to 14 feet. So, storm surge of 5 to 7, but swells of 10 to 14, and then the 3 to 6 inches of rain as well. Please show winds inside the storm as of now. So, sure. So right now the winds are 75 miles an hour. Let's see the best way to do this. So, obviously we know that the winds are 75 miles an hour at the center of circulation. At this point in time, the winds of a hurricane force only go 10 miles out. Okay, they only extend 10 miles from the center of circulation. And then the tropical storm force winds, I think, were like 65 miles from the center, I believe. Let's see here. 60 miles. So tropical storm force winds are 60 miles from the center. So if we look at this, bring up the spatial tool again. If this is the center of Beryl right here, and again, I still haven't gotten that frame yet as far as the 5 o'clock update. I have no idea why, because the track is correct. Just don't have that first initial plot correct. So your winds of a hurricane force are only 10 miles from the center of circulation, all right? So if we were to look at this, and we go out here, and we follow the track, and we get to Barbados, from the southern coast of Barbados to the center of circulation is 50 miles. Okay, so we're going to have to get an expansion of the wind fields, but that's expected because, again, right now we have a 75 mile an hour hurricane, and this is forecast to be a 120 mile an hour hurricane as it moves through. It's 115 here, but between the two plots, the Hurricane Center has it becoming 120, and there you go right there. So 120. That is a sustained major hurricane moving through. And again, the wind fields typically are skewed a little bit more expansive on the north side, especially with the tropical storm force winds. So again, if this is the center line, we're going to have to get the winds to extend the hurricane force 50 miles from the center to get to Barbados. Now, obviously, places like St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia are in for it a little bit more. St. Lucia, from the center line, is about 65 miles. But again, don't like to focus on the center line. I'm just using that as a point of reference because the question was, what do the winds look like right now? They're only 10 miles from the center, mainly to the north, but obviously they're going to get more expansive as Beryl gets stronger. Now, Beryl may not get any bigger, but the hurricane force winds are going to get more expansive as well. Now, the tropical storm force winds already extend 60 miles, okay? So that puts Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, all within that. Same thing for Martinique. It'll be a little bit closer for Dominica as far as sustained tropical storm force winds. To the outer band of that edge, it's about 80 miles. You get to the center, it's about 150. But typically speaking, as these hurricanes deepen, I have seen tropical storm force wind fields that extend 400 miles. All right, I'm not saying Beryl is going to do that, but these storm wind fields will expand as Beryl gets stronger and stronger. And of course, we go under eye wall replacement cycles. Then the inner eye wall collapses, and the hurricane force winds collapse around it, and then it expands again. And we'll just have to see what Beryl is going to be doing at the moment as it moves through, as far as where exactly we're going to have the hurricane force winds. But friends, when you're talking about a major hurricane, a Cat 3 strength hurricane coming through, the impacts are going to be significant, unfortunately, and the impact's going to be felt widespread. Because of that, actually, one of the things I want to show here real fast is going to be these impacts. Let me find that on my screen here real quick, guys. So here we go. Hurricane warning, Barbados. Hurricane watch, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Grenada. Martinique, Dominica, and Tobago, tropical storm watch. Fully expect these watches to be upgraded to warnings. It's just a matter of time. Barbados is slightly farther east, so they fell within the 36-hour time frame for the warning. And eventually, the hurricane watches will turn into warnings. The tropical storm watches will turn into warnings. The biggest question, more than anything else, is, are we going to get additional islands to be included in any of the watches or warnings? Hi, Noble Pills. Thank you so much for your super thanks. I appreciate you very much. Thank you very much. Sally says, will it affect Grenada badly? The answer to that is, unfortunately, on the path, the answer is yes. It will, unfortunately, impact Grenada quite significantly on the expected path. And again, that's why we have that hurricane warning that's currently in effect. I'm trying to find here, guys, if you'll bear with me, this particular graphic. Here we go. So these are the impacts that the Hurricane Center put out in their 5 o'clock advisory. So maximum sustained winds of 115, it's category 3 strength. That's 185 kilometers an hour. 115 to 120, so Cat 3 in the forecast. Storm surge overall of 5 to 7 feet. All right. Certain areas will have more impacts than storm surge. Check in with your local officials on that. Swells, 10 to 14 feet. 10 to 14 foot easterly swells coming in. That is going to put a lot of low-lying areas underwater. Rainfall of 3 to 6 inches. Beryl is moving fast, thankfully. Okay, 3 to 6 inches, 75 to 150 millimeters of rain, and power outages come along for the ride. All right, guys, hit me with some questions. MP says, thank you for your news and expertise. I appreciate you. Crystal asked, with all the wind north of the storm, will it be bad for Barbados? Yes. Barbados could be significantly impacted with a major hurricane. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Unfortunately, based on this track that we're seeing, Barbados could be in the most significant area of this storm. All right. Let me take myself off camera one more time real quick. I want to make sure I just don't go to a graphic that I says something like the live stream ended or something like that. I basically got my computer on manual right now, and so that's why I wanted to do that. So let me pull up the GFS model again here while we're chatting. And again, I appreciate all of the super things. I appreciate liking this. I appreciate subscribing to the channel as well. We've had some very good viewership lately, and I really do appreciate all the comments, and I appreciate all the thanks, and it's my pleasure to bring you guys this information. And I've got you covered. I mean, we're going to have consistent video updates. If you guys don't know, we stream this computer 24/7 when I'm not on. All right, so this is not going to be running simultaneously, but when I'm not on, we'll run our computer 24/7 for you guys to be able to check in. Here's what I would do. In all honesty, if I lived in these areas and you wanted to count on Meteo Mundo to give you some updates, the first thing is you always check in with local officials for information in your area, okay? Any source is never going to be as pertinent for local information as your local government, your local officials, okay? Now, obviously, some are better than others at that, but always check in with that messaging. If you're concerned about Beryl in this area, again, when we're done here, the 24/7 live stream will come on. I'm going to do video updates on Sunday. More than likely, I'll come on live again on Sunday. And then my thought is on Monday morning to go on live. And then we're going to cover Beryl moving through these areas live together here on Meteo Mundo. So again, we're going to try and have as much of a 24/7 presence as possible. If you're concerned about Beryl, check in with the live stream. This, if you haven't looked at it, this moves around and it loops. It has all of the newest information, all of the updated forecast tracks from the Hurricane Center, your live satellite, your live radar, all the live lightning. So you really get a good idea of what's happening here in real time. And of course, these video updates are important because I can pass along some other information. I jump in from the chat from time to time as well. So what I wanted to show for my friend in Barbados here who asked is that you can clearly see that the GFS model is right in line with where the Hurricane Center has this. All right. Again, this is early on Monday morning, July 1st. So if I stair step this back to tomorrow afternoon, we can see the GFS model beginning to first of all show a clearly defined eye as this becomes category 2, category 3. All right. If it were to take this path, the problem with this is that you're going to have winds coming into Barbados like that. And it's going to take a wall of water. The storm surge forecast to be 5 to 7 feet. And it's going to drive that into Barbados. And then along that path for St. Lucia and St. Vincent and portions of the Grenadines, it's going to drive there. Now, south of this, it's counterclockwise. Okay? Obviously, the winds move like this. So south won't have as much water inundation with the initial storm surge because everything's moving in one direction on the north side of the storm, right? The forward speed, the winds are all going in the same direction. Here, on the south side, the winds are actually going in the opposite direction of the forward movement of the storm. So there's a net negative as far as the winds go. It's also going to be pushing water in a different direction. It doesn't mean we won't get some storm surge to areas south of the center of circulation, but it's not nearly as impactful on the south. Problem, of course, let's just take Grenada as an example, all right? Let's say Grenada misses the storm to the south. Okay, well, that's okay for the storm surge, but the problem is Grenada is close enough to the Category 3 hurricane force winds where the wind problems with Grenada could be highly significant. So just because you're on the south side of it doesn't going to mean you're going to miss some of the worst stuff. Now, that's one reason why, though, Trinidad is not under a tropical storm watch, but Dominica is, because there'll be more impacts farther north from the storm than what there will be off towards the south. Again, the impacts will be felt much wider than what we have here as far as that line. And I don't want you guys to focus on the line, but the only reason why I'm talking about it is because we are talking about some small island nations. And this storm missing you north or south or however it passes your area will have a big say in what you get. You know, if you had to have a major hurricane move through and you can't do anything about it, you would hope it would pass just a little bit to your north. That's really what I'm trying to say out of any of this. Will Grenada get the full impact? I would expect it. Again, I just mentioned how Grenada may not see the storm surge, but it certainly would have the impact. Northern Barbados impacts winds like the south. Sorry, I don't understand that one. Will they be flying into the system tomorrow? I would assume so. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be. I haven't looked at the latest hurricane reconnaissance aircraft, hurricane hunters. Okay, here we go. Both the NOAA, which is the high altitude Lear jet, and the Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunters are scheduled to investigate Beryl tomorrow. The data that they will collect will be very helpful in assessing the system structure and intensity. I'm going to give you a quick, as I put on a little bit of chapstick, and I hope you don't mind. Here's what I've seen with these storms when the hurricane hunters first go into it. You know what they find? They find a storm that's even stronger than what they forecast. That's what I've typically found. When they're just using satellite data, they go in and they put the drop zones in, and over the last couple of hurricane seasons, they found storms that are even stronger than what they've talked about. and they're already talking about a major Category 3 hurricane. I hope it's not the case. But again, we have had unprecedented development as far as rapid intensification. Just to be clear, it is extremely rare here in the Atlantic Basin, the main development region we call it, to have a tropical wave hold together as it gets into the Western Atlantic. Typically, there's a ton of wind shear, okay? Westerlies that bump into a storm and rip it apart before it really even tries to get going. That's why these waves stay elongated and they start to bring in some rainfall to the Lesser Antilles, but they never stay organized. Well, La Nina is here, okay? So overall, very little wind shear. That area of high pressure to the north is a more localized feature, aiding in there being no wind shear. And ocean temperatures are outrageously hot. They're in the upper 20s to lower 30s Celsius, upper 80s, pushing 90 degrees Fahrenheit in some spots. And this has been something that we've talked about many, many times here on the channel, which is why the forecast had been for the potential for numerous storms. But even that being said, to get a major hurricane in this part of the world in late June into early July, it will be record-breaking in some spots, especially if it does bear to be a Category 3. So again, you're looking at the GFS model, and this is the time frame for for Monday morning, and we have it moving through. Now again, the GFS actually strengthens it further as it gets into the Eastern Caribbean, and then the GFS model is one that tries to weaken Beryl because it's a farther north track into close to the southern sides of Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. Still could be some significant impacts for Jamaica. But again, I don't want to sit here and say, I hope one model plays out favorable than others, because every single island nation is going to see something different based on the models. The GFS is weaker. Okay, that's great, but with more impacts for the Dominican Republic and Haiti. So I don't want to sit here and go, oh man, I hope the GFS works out because it'll be a weaker storm for Jamaica. Well, you know what? The Dominican Republic and Haiti will take a little bit more of a shot if the GFS is true, okay? Certainly, in the short term, we want Beryl to stay as weak as possible, but I'm not really sure how we're going to do that in any way, shape, or form. There just doesn't really look to be a lot behind that. Jonathan asks, second system behind Beryl, yes, will it turn into a hurricane? At this point in time, we don't even have an invest, so it's hard to tell. But typically speaking, on the heels of a strong hurricane like this, and here comes the second system, Jonathan, they're weaker. I'll show you the winds coming out of this. On the GFS, it's a tropical storm. There's a high likelihood we get ourselves a named storm. And by the way, if we're talking about timing, right? Here comes Beryl through the Windward Islands, southern side of the Lesser Antilles in general, on our Monday, throughout the day Monday. 48 hours later, a potential another named storm coming through the same areas. Unbelievable. You're welcome, Jonathan. My pleasure with that. Again, cold water upwelling, the atmosphere is a little bit more raked, okay? A lot of the juice of the atmosphere has been used by the first storm. I've seen it many, many times, and almost every single time, as long as the second storm stays on the general path of the first, it just doesn't have the ingredients to get as strong as the first one. And I hope that's the case. Hope it falls apart, to be quite honest, but we have a very high likelihood of that becoming a system. Let's look at the winds. Again, if you're just tuning in, I appreciate you guys. While you're here, if you want to do me a big favor, just hit the like button on this live stream. I can't quite tell how many likes we've gotten up to, so if someone wants to drop it in the comments, let me know. I've got my tablet here, by the way. That's what I'm looking at. Got myself a tablet where I can see the chat. And so I'm at the bottom of the chat right now. And you guys are more than welcome to drop in a comment while you're there. Again, I appreciate the like. I appreciate the super things. I appreciate our members as well. It's just 99 cents a month. You get access to custom badges and emojis on this live chat. Pieces of flair, let's say. And you guys can show those off. Let's go over to the winds here real quick. So again, this is the GFS model, and these are surface winds. And if you're just tuning in, Barbados, hurricane warning. Dominica, Martinique, Tobago, tropical storm watch. St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, hurricane watch. which will more than likely be upgraded to a hurricane warning. So let's take a look at our winds here on this, and we have over 1,500 people watching, and I appreciate you guys. I think we had over 1,600 for a time as well. Where'd the other 100 go? 523 we got there. Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thank you for the 500 likes. It's very, very kind of you. And I appreciate you guys tuning in as well. So again, on the GFS model here, we start to see, and I'm just going to leave up the track because again, we can kind of watch that. Same scenario, right towards there. Now take a look at this. And this is the newest run of the GFS. And why it likes to do that, I don't know. It jumps, when I pick the, let's take a look at this, it jumps in time. Little quirk of the system. But here you go. We'll just get right into it. No reason not to. So if I click these numbers, guys, okay? This is right at 8 a.m. on Monday. GFS model. Oh, will it let me do a path or not? Let's see. Might not be able to do a path here. I'm trying to draw a line. I might be able to. Yeah, I can. Okay, excellent. By the way, it has 82 mile an hour winds near Bridgetown, which again, might be underdoing it. I hate to say that. So my point is I'm drawing these 100+ mile an hour winds, and we're 10 to 15 miles away from Barbados. So an expansion of the winds, a slight shift north, and you get sustained winds, even on the GFS, which is one of the weaker models right now, into Barbados on Monday morning. I have my concerns for Barbados in a lot of different ways. And the main thing is that I don't see a scenario right now where Barbados just doesn't get the direct impacts from Beryl. And it's sad to talk about, it really is, but it's important to talk about because we want to get everyone prepared for this. Again, this is a Category 3 hurricane from the National Hurricane Center with winds of 120 miles an hour, and it stinks. You know, you hate to talk about it, but it is the reality of the situation right now, guys. And I hope everyone in these areas is just taking this very, very seriously, okay? You know, we can replace property. It might be a rough go of it for a time, but we don't want loss of life. And again, I've been through it. So I grew up on the west coast of Florida. The no-name storm of 1993 came in. It pushed salt water into our home, and we were flooded out of our house for more than 6 months, okay? Wasn't able to, we had to pull out all the carpeting. We lost all of the furniture. We lost a car. I've been there. I know what the loss is like from a storm. It stinks. I was a teenager. It just, you know, it's no fun, but I've been there. Okay, so one of the reasons why I wanted to do what I do is to try and help to give you guys information to try and mitigate some of these issues if at all possible. All right, but I've been there and I know what it's like, and it stinks. So that's again the winds from the GFS model. Let me see if I can clear those real quick. And then let's stair step this into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So again, same scenario here. When we look at this, and I pull on the telestration, actually, let me do this real quick. I want to move this just a little bit over here, but I can't do that. So if we look at this path from the GFS, and now I can telestrate. Again, well, let's see here, Rusty. I guess it's going to make me, let me query these numbers first, and then we'll get into it. Okay, now it's letting me draw. I guess I can do both. I'm finding out new things about this system as we go on the fly. So again, these are your overall counterclockwise winds, okay? But you understand my concern for St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because the winds and the forward movement are going in the same direction. That's a net positive on the northern side, the right front quadrant. The winds spiraling around are going in a different direction than the forward speed of Beryl, the forward direction, so that's a net negative on the south side. So we typically don't see the wind profiles be as significant to the south. And because we're not pulling in the same kind of storm surge, the wind, the wave action tends to be a little bit less on the south side as well. Again, you know, I don't want to overstate it, but it is a factor. Well, I guess the arrows are coming along for a ride. I wanted to zoom out just a little bit because I also wanted to show like Martinique and Dominica and down towards Grenada. I will say this for Grenada, you're gonna, you know, it's gonna be, if there's an area that I just have more uncertainty about, it's Grenada. Because being on the south side of the circulation, you're not gonna have as much storm surge issue, but the hurricane winds are close enough to you where you're probably gonna have hurricane force conditions over the island for a time. But it could be a little bit better than the northern side of the Grenadines, St. Vincent and St. Lucia as well. So again, does that clear? I hope that's clear to everyone, kind of what I was trying to explain there, is why where the center of circulation passes is actually really, really important. Okay. Watching from TNT, watching from St. Kitts, watching from St. Vincent. I appreciate you guys. Richard, is it Baquia? So how do we pronounce that? Here's the thing about me as well, guys. I actually speak Italian. Io parlo italiano per 9 anni. Speak a little bit of Spanish. Grew up in Florida, okay? And so it actually helps me with the pronunciation of some of the regions in this area, which is fantastic. But I actually just put on these islands a couple of days ago in preparation for more than likely Beryl coming through the Grenadines. So I haven't had a time to go and learn the pronunciations. All right. Mustique, is that right? Kenhuan, Kerak. Oh, I'm not even going to try. I'll go back tonight and I'm gonna study up on the pronunciations. But the reason why I put this on here is I wanted my friends in the Grenadines to be able to see their islands. Here's something for you. If we want to have a little moment of levity in this situation, when I was looking around to add these islands using Google Maps, I saw that there's a Mr. Beast rock. And by the way, I have an 11 and a 9-year-old, so I know who Mr. Beast is, okay? Apparently, in the Grenadines, there is a very famous rock formation that Mr. Beast was on, and literally on Google Maps, there's a pin on it. How about that? Beckway, thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, I've really tried to do my homework and make sure that I pronounce everything correctly and that I use local pronunciation, so I appreciate that. Beckway, awesome. Risha asks, how much rain for the Grenadines? 3 to 6 inches. 3 to 6 inches. So again, Beryl's going to be moving at around 20 to 23 miles an hour as it comes through the Windward Islands. So a fast forward speed means less rain impact. It's not going to be sitting in one area for as long, okay? That's 75 to 150 millimeters of rain. Now, when you add in the storm surge, there could still be a lot of localized flooding. Please check in with area officials as far as that goes. But the rainfall overall is not going to be as significant if Beryl was a slower moving hurricane, okay? The forward speed in that regard helps because it keeps the heavy rain from not sitting over one area for too long, but still a relatively significant 3 to 6 inches of rain. Gracie from Jamaica, love your channel. Thank you for keeping us updated. I appreciate it. Marky Mark, A, love the name. B, what's Tobago's impacts? Great question. Let's take a look. So Tobago and Trinidad in general are far enough south where we're going to be brushing Tobago with potential tropical storm force impacts. If you live in Tobago, you have probably heard that you guys are under a tropical storm watch. That is the line in blue. Okay, on my system here, just so we're clear, blue lines for Martinique and Tobago, Dominica, excuse me, Martinique and Tobago, tropical storm watches. Orange lines, hurricane watches. St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada. Red line, Barbados, hurricane warning. These will all be upgraded to warnings either later tonight or tomorrow as Beryl gets closer, as it falls within the 36-hour time frame. Barbados just being farther off to the east, going to get the impacts just a little bit earlier. That's why they were upgraded to a warning first. the 8 o'clock advisory, the 11 p.m. advisory, at some point in time sooner than later, these are going to change into warnings. Now, whether places like Martinique and Dominica get upgraded to hurricane warnings rather than tropical storm warnings, we'll have to wait and see. Trinidad and Tobago being far enough south, again, we've already kind of talked about how farther south is better in this situation, could get brushed with tropical storm conditions, but potentially even avoiding sustained tropical winds. Again, on the GFS model, we really avoid a lot of that. Now, other models are stronger with what it brings in to Tobago, but Trinidad is certainly far enough away right now that, again, there's not even a tropical storm watch. Same thing for Nueva Esparta, there on the coastline of Venezuela. Farther north you go, more problematic. More problematic. Guadeloupe is probably far enough away where we're going to avoid a tropical storm watch or warning there. But gusts, tell you what, I just said the word that I wanted to talk about. I've been showing you all these sustained winds, which is important because they're going to be significant enough. But let's take a look at the gusts of wind. So let me bring that up. And we can look at rainfall totals as well. So these are going to be the gusts from the GFS. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen them in a while. Boy, they're not going to be fun. I can tell you that much right now. Alice says, the ABC Islands add this hurricane. Yes, the ABC Islands, if there is one area where I can actually talk about there might actually be something to help people out in this horrible scenario, is that the ABC Islands might get a little bit of rain. ABC Islands will not be directly impacted by Beryl, way too far to the north, but there's potential that as Beryl passes north of the islands, the south wind pulls in some rain. It's an area that's desperate for some rain. Nitroso Racing asks, how's Puerto Rico looking? Indirect impacts for Puerto Rico. Now, we'll take a look at these gusts. I think this is a great product to show you guys, actually. We're going to take a look at these gusts here. We'll get into Puerto Rico. Broad brush, Puerto Rico, 1 to 4 inches of rain, 30 to 35 mile an hour winds moving in on Tuesday through early on Wednesday. So let's take a look at these gusts. And I think it's going to be a little bit easier for me to drop some of the information. So we'll say goodbye to that for now and get in on this. Now, again, the GFS model is one of the weaker models. I need to continue to reiterate that, and we can look at the other models coming up. But this is 1 a.m. on our Monday. So again, these are gusts. Now you got 107 here, gusts. Gusts in Barbados, 1 a.m. already hitting tropical storm strength. So if we play this out on the GFS model, the winds really freshen up late Sunday night for the Windward Islands and Barbados, and then really go downhill in a hurry on Monday. You need to have your preparations done by dark Sunday night, tomorrow night. You've got 24 hours. Simple as that. I would get them done as early as you possibly can. Whatever that encompasses you doing, okay? Again, I've stated it enough, but I'll state it again. Check in with your local officials. You know what to do. So there's your hurricane winds up to 75 miles an hour. Again, these are gusts. They're not sustained, but it shows you on this product, again, how much more expansive the gust wind field is going to be. Guadeloupe and Dominica and Martinique already by 1 a.m. getting hit with some 30 mile an hour winds. Again, to the south, it's not nearly as significant. I expect there to be more wind than what the GFS model is showing, but again, south side is better. Stair step this out. Barbados. All right, 5 a.m. gusts. Barbados, well into the 60s already. Hopefully this will let me stay on. I don't have to keep doing that. 110. getting close to having hurricane force winds brush the southeast side of the island. This is 5 a.m. It's going to be dark. It's going to be no fun. That's the other thing for Barbados. At least for St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, this will be moving through on the daylight hours based on the timing, right? But it's just early enough here where we don't have sunrise yet on Monday as it comes through Barbados. Now, we get into some significant stuff, guys. 8 a.m. Let's take a look. GFS model has 102 mile an hour wind gusts in Bridgetown at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. It's not fun. Hope my friends in Barbados are prepared. And we have a lot of subscribers here at Media Mundo who live in Barbados and in this area in general. And I appreciate you guys a lot. And our thoughts are with you guys as well. And again, the GFS model is weaker than most. I want to be clear. The Hurricane Center at this point in time has a 120 mile an hour sustained wind storm moving in. They also mentioned something that if you live in these areas caught my attention, and you guys might know more about it as well. But they have clearly stated, they've said this: wind speeds atop the windward side of the hills of the mountains are often 30% stronger than the near surface winds that are located in this advisory. Some elevated locations even greater. Obviously, the topography of all of the islands differ. You guys know where you live. You guys know if topography, terrain is a part of where you are in your community. The bottom line is they're talking about some elevations here having potentially 30% more wind than what the forecast advisory calls for, which is already 120 mile an hour winds or higher. Keep going. One more time frame out. So now we're at 11 a.m. Here you go. 106, 107, 109. Gusts coming into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Rising sun. Okay. Bequia, Cancun, Carriacou, Mustique. How'd I do? Mustique, Bequia, Cancun, Carriacou. Let me know, Rising Sun, if I got all four of those right. And I appreciate you giving me those pronouncers. Like I said, it's important to me because I want to have a connection with you guys, and it is the least that I can do to do the best that I can to pronounce your areas right. Obviously cover a lot of space here at Media Mundo, but it's an important thing and I do my homework. So again, when we look at this, you can see down the island chain. So for Mustique, you're at 70 here, but then you get to Cancun and you start to fall off, and you notice for Union Island, okay, and Carriacou, the winds drop off faster. Again, Grenada is under the hurricane warning, or excuse me, the hurricane watch, but on the GFS, we might do okay. It's going to be really close, but we might do okay. Obviously, north, St. Lucia and Martinique, again, much more issues here. Is there a plausible scenario that Martinique has more wind than Grenada? Absolutely, especially on the north side. But no one is out of the woods right now. Again, although I don't expect the track to change much, a subtle change in the track will have big time difference of impacts here because obviously the islands are very tightly clustered. Even Dominica gets into 40 mile an hour winds, Guadeloupe 33, Antigua and Barbuda and Anguilla. Just to show you guys up here in the leewards, it's going to be some real solid wind. My friends in Puerto Rico, there's your wind on Monday morning. Going to be out of the east for the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola. Again, probably fresh 30 to 35s with some higher gusts. Back into it. We'll take another little stair step. And again, look at these winds, which are just going to be pinging in that 110 range. which again is sadly is a little too low based on the Hurricane Center's forecast. I think more than anything, the numbers are significant, but looking at the expanse of the wind field is probably even more of an education on this map for me and for you, because you can clearly see how eroded the winds are relatively quickly south and west of the center of circulation, and how expansive the wind field is going to be to the north. And again, it's an east wind that drives in all of that moisture as well. Get back over here to the live chat. I might have missed a couple of things. You do good. Now practice in the mirror. Thanks. Oh man. What time on Wednesday for Jamaica? World Weather Trackers asks. It's too up in the air, to be quite honest. I mean, we're traversing, well over 1,000 miles. So I don't want to get into that. I mean, I believe it was Wednesday afternoon from the latest from the Hurricane Center, but that will come into focus more as we get into Monday and Tuesday. For places like Hispaniola and Jamaica, late tomorrow and Monday is really going to be when we can start to narrow in, especially on Monday, because as we get into Monday afternoon, now we start getting within that 48-hour window where we're going to see the watches go up and then eventually the warnings as well, if this holds together as is expected to. So just to carry this on from here though, if we want to follow the GFS, again, notice that there's going to be a lot more interaction with Hispaniola. North winds coming in on the top side of this, right? That's going to be wrapping back in. Do it like this on the green screen like this. It's going to be a lot of drier air coming over the mountainous terrain of Hispaniola. On the GFS, it's going to knock down Beryl quicker, okay? But a closer approach to Santo Domingo and Punta Cana and down towards Lacaille here in Haiti, they're going to have more impacts, stronger winds, all right? Going to get lashed more out of this, and you can see that, again, this would not be a good scenario for portions of the southern side of Hispaniola, where again, you're looking at least good tropical storm force winds and potentially some hurricane gusts getting very close to the island. Now, I need to preface this as we get into Jamaica by saying that, again, the GFS rips apart the storm a lot faster than anything else. But if we're looking at it, if you want to follow the time frame of the GFS, the question that was asked of me here by World Weather Trackers, there you go. It would be basically the weather just going downhill on Wednesday. There's lunchtime on Wednesday, and then there's Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Potentially the best case scenario would be this GFS for Jamaica, obviously. But even then, it's got some near hurricane winds coming in. And again, the official forecast is for a lot stronger than that. Official forecast from the Hurricane Center, even into the Cayman Islands, is a Cat 1. Still a Cat 2 here. And again, the official forecast just south of the island, but that's no good for the same scenario we just talked about for the Windward Islands as well, is that the east winds, if the center of circulation south of Jamaica drives in a wall of water with the storm surge and the sea conditions as well. So that's not a great scenario if that holds true. All right. Well, we've been on here, guys, for a while. Let's see, about an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to stay on for just a little bit longer. Answer your questions. Let's see here. Tamara says, I am in Grenada. Solar panels on my house. Should I take them down? Oh, brother. Tamara, I don't know if I want to answer that question, because I think, here's what I'll say. Whatever measures you think you need to take, I would take them. Now, if that includes potentially taking off those solar panels, I don't know how quickly you can do that. But obviously, Grenada right now is under a hurricane watch. So you have to assume that Grenada will have hurricane conditions. So if that's an opportunity that you might be able to do, I would probably do it. But again, I don't know your specific scenario. The bottom line is, for anyone here, I'd say whatever steps you can take to protect property, but most importantly, protect life, you got to do. You got to do with a major hurricane forecast to come through on Monday morning. Again, you've got about 24 hours to do it. Hi, Matt from Ohio. I appreciate you. Do a phenomenal job. I actually visited Ohio very quickly last year. I got a friend, a very, very close friend who lives in Ohio, and flew into the Cincinnati airport, hung out with him, but we stayed in Ohio. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Kesta asks, what's the Tobago's impacts? We covered that relatively not that long ago, where it's a tropical storm watch for Tobago, but being south, we're looking a little bit better. Now, again, the crazy thing, guys, is that all of this right now is a tropical wave ahead of Beryl, has nothing to do with Beryl, but this area is getting hit with some very heavy rain right now. And then we've got punch number 1 with Beryl coming in, which is going to be extremely significant. And then punch number 2 with our second scenario, our second system, which is right here, with a high likelihood of development as well. It's going to stink to talk about the fact that after Beryl leaves, we might be having another tropical storm coming into the same area, but it's absolutely possible. And again, you can see here at Meteo Mundo the live lightning data for you as well. There's your live lightning count. Ooh, let's look at winds. Haven't brought up the winds in a little bit. Keep asking your questions, guys. I appreciate you. I'm here for you. Joy asks, is it going to hit Barbados? And Angelique, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, says, watching from Barbados. First of all, I appreciate you, Angelique, and our thoughts are with you, and our thoughts are with Joy. And to answer Joy's question, Barbados is going to be significantly impacted by Beryl based on the intensity and the track from the National Hurricane Center. We've talked about Barbados a lot, but on this track, significant hurricane impacts are likely for Barbados, beginning very early on Monday morning and then throughout the day. So if you live in Barbados, you do need to be preparing now. Check in with your local officials, your local government. The Barbados Department of Meteorology, they do an excellent job. So keep up with them as well. They've got all the different things here. I actually have the Barbados, and I don't want to say their name wrong, but it's the Barbados Meteorological Services. For Barbados, they're calling for 2 to 4 inches of rain, power outages, utility outages, hazardous marine conditions. What you should do. The public is encouraged to follow the advice provided by the Department of Emergency Management and other local officials. And that's exactly what I would say as well. So they're calling for 2 to 4 inches. Could be slightly higher than that as well. Let's see here if I can close this tab. There we go. See what the marine warning is here. They've got small craft, high surf warnings, as you would imagine. They're going to be going, that are already into effect right now. I did see something earlier on a statement. I believe they were mentioning 10 to 13 foot swells. And that's basically the forecast for the Hurricane Center as well, about 10 to 14 there. Robert says, what's going on in Antigua? Antigua is going to have some 30-mile-an-hour winds out of the east with this, maybe 1 to 4 inches of rain. It's indirect impacts for Antigua. That is good news. Trinidad's impacts are going to be, at this point in time, relatively benign, meaning that not significant, because the center of circulation of Beryl is forecast to move far enough to the north. But still, if you live in Trinidad, make sure you keep a very watchful eye. Tobago is under a tropical storm watch, so just a little bit closer to where that center of circulation may go. Al says, SVG is in Beryl's path. Absolutely. Cruz asks where Beryl is right now. Fantastic question. Beryl is right here, and I can draw on exactly how far away it is. From Barbados, we'll start with here. It is about 715 miles from Barbados as we speak, live on this Saturday evening as we approach 7 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time and 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time as well. So we are 700 miles away. Someone asked if I was on air in OKC. Yes, I was. I've been a television meteorologist, or was a television meteorologist for 25 years. Did spend 7 years in Oklahoma City battling the tornadoes and the very large hail, which destroyed 2 of my roofs and 2 of my cars. And then I've been back here where I grew up in Florida for the past 10 years. But happy to be a founder of Meteo Mundo and to be able to present this for you guys. Big time passion of mine, and I appreciate it. And your part of the world is important to me. Look, you know, on a daily basis, we're going to be covering all of the Caribbean. We're going to be covering the Bahamas here at Meteo Mundo. But when we're talking about active storms, we're going to be covering the Gulf of Mexico. I'll be covering the East Coast of the United States as well. So for my friends, the United States Gulf Coast and the East Coast, when tropical weather threatens you, I'm going to keep you guys up to date, just like we did with Tropical Storm Alberto, which also allows me to segue real quickly into Invest 94L. I don't want to bypass my friends here in the Yucatan and Belize and Guatemala. Storms are really flushed up again today as this Invest moves into the Southwest Gulf. It hasn't developed yet. About a 40% chance of very quick development over the weekend. If it's going to develop, it might be a depression for about 6 to 12 hours, and then it moves into the western side, the eastern side of Mexico, northern Mexico there, south of Texas. Again, big plumes of moisture coming in. No direct impacts for the United States here. Some of this moisture has brought some very heavy rain to portions of the Cayman Islands and Jamaica the last few days. It's drying out there a bit, but this Central American gyre is also bringing a ton of rain to Central America in general. And again, especially for my friends who live in Belize, they had been so desperate for rain. I mean, they had, you know, their reservoirs and their hydroelectric power was really becoming like imminently threatened by the drought that they had. Now it's just raining cats and dogs, and I hope that the scenario is they've gotten the rain that they've needed, but they haven't gotten a lot of flash flooding because there has been some very heavy rainfall in this area the past couple of weeks. Okay. What about Jamaica? Happy to go back over it again. You know, I think we've covered everything at least once, but I'm happy to go back over things because I know people are coming in and out of this, and that's what this live stream is. Again, one reason why I love the digital platform in this is that there's no inherent time. You know, don't have to get on and off. You know, the videos that I create, I can make them a certain amount of time. When we do these live streams, we can keep going as well. Again, for Jamaica right now, from the official forecast from the Hurricane Center, that's a Category 2 hurricane south of Jamaica, but basically over the island, if you will, on Wednesday. Okay, that's a pinpoint time in the early afternoon hours of Wednesday. But obviously, if this holds together, Jamaica's impacts will be felt much earlier than that. It's actually a great thing for me to just go ahead and reset the other graphics that I had here to talk about this. I think that's probably the easiest thing to do for some of the new folks that we've had coming in. And again, I appreciate you guys. Let me come back real quick. Thank you so much. Give me a count of our likes. And I would love to get to 1,000 since we're still going. So how about 1,000 likes? I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber here to Meteo Mundo of yet, just click that subscribe button. Notifications on. You'll know when we're doing live content like this. So looking at Beryl on the European model, Beryl is farther south, just by a little bit, but stronger. Generally speaking, the models diverge a bit as it gets into the Central Caribbean, with the GFS being farther north, more land interaction with Hispaniola, making it weaker, okay, by a bit. But again, the forecast for the Hurricane Center is still a hurricane of a Cat 2 trying to get close to Jamaica on Wednesday. So yes, down the road, once this passes the Windward Islands, okay, we're going to focus on, obviously, the first area's impact first, but down the road, we might be having a lot of discussion about the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands. It's absolutely possible. And then farther down the road, we might be talking about places in the Yucatan and in Central America. That black line is the mean ensemble from the European model. Obviously, farther out in time, the models do begin to diverge. The wave action is going to be outrageous. You can see that right now on the wave heights. Take a look at that. You're looking at some 10 to 14 foot waves, as I've mentioned several times, not only with Beryl, but with the second system coming in as well. It's like a rainbow out there, but that is going to really cause some problems. And even for the Western Atlantic, even for the Turks and Caicos, and on the eastern side of the Bahamas, long period swells, potentially over double digit in height, 10, 12, 14 feet. And you can just see all of that wave action that Beryl and the second system behind it brings into those areas. Let's look at the European model intensity. Okay, this is Beryl's European model intensity. The black line is the mean line, which is now high-end Cat 1, low-end Cat 2. But again, the problem with that is it's still lower than the official forecast from the Hurricane Center. Now, the deterministic model, which is kind of like the first big model run here, is going to be a Cat 2 strength, okay? And so this has gotten stronger just in the past model run. It was right around Cat 1 strength earlier. Now we're into Cat 2 and even Cat 3. These are the products from the spaghetti plots. You can see that. Again, most of those are higher end as well. Quick sip of water, excuse me, guys. And again, you can see that all of these now are basically hurricanes. And then we talk about Cat 2, Cat 3. That's what we're going to be looking at. If you look at the bottom of your screen, that is your time frame. So as we get into July 1st, we see the storm continuing to intensify and becoming a hurricane, potentially a Category 3. Let's take a look at the HAFS model and come back on screen. I keep hitting the wrong button. So I showed you the GFS model a lot. We looked at the European model. There's a couple of other models that I put some weight into here and happy to pass along. The HAFS is the Hurricane Analysis and Forecast System. I believe that's what it is. There's two different models, Model A, Model B. One of them is global. The other one just focuses in on the Atlantic Basin area, where the National Hurricane Center forecasts on. But that's really about it. There are some variations in the model, but not significant. But when you look at the HAFS A model on Monday morning at 7 a.m., you are looking at maximum winds of 109 miles an hour sustained. So it's high-end Cat 2. This is 7 a.m. on Monday, just south of Barbados. Again, notice how all of the models are very much in agreement with the path of Beryl, all right? That's one thing that we haven't talked a ton about because there's not really a lot of variation. I don't see anything right now that has it north of Barbados. Could still change, obviously, but we've been talking a lot more about the wind speeds and then what happens after the Windward Islands rather than the actual track, because it really looks like the models are honed in on that pretty darn well. That's the HAFS A. The HAFS B is, again, almost in the same spot, but now the max winds are 129 miles an hour, well into Category 3, knocking on Cat 4 strength. It's an unbelievable blow-up of a storm. Is it impossible to get there? No, absolutely not. I mean, the official forecast from the Hurricane Center right now is of a Category 3 with 120 mile an hour winds. So go to 10 more higher than that? Not absolutely. GFS is not weaker anymore. Pull up the 18Z. I would have to reload the system, and I think I'll be able to here. It's a good idea while I'm off of this to pull down my system. It takes a little bit to load. It does it automatically, so hopefully it will, but thank you for that. And yes, the 18Z is in. Hi, Gracie. I appreciate you too. Thanks for watching. Jamie says we had flooding in northern Belize today. Yeah, it's not, boy, it's one of those things, isn't it? Sorry about that. Taking a quick look at things here, guys. Okay. Just had a message come through. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't something I had to deal with right away. HAFS B, so we looked at that. This is the GFS model pressure, and again, maybe the ATZ is a little bit stronger now, but you can see, and for this one, we'll just look at the track of it, and it does strengthen it as it moves through the Windward Islands. And that's the other thing too, is that more than likely we're just going to continue to see a hurricane that actually is going to get stronger as it gets closer to Barbados, and even stronger as it gets closer to St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then even stronger, at least for time, as it moves west of those areas into the Eastern Caribbean. It is forecast to encounter some wind shear, okay? But maybe not significant to knock it down much as it gets to the west of the islands. This is the HAFS B model throughout its entire time. This is like a floater product. So basically, the storm stays in the center part of the image, and then the map moves around. And so again, when we look at the HAFS model here, and you can see the time frame at the top of your screen, as we get into Monday morning, watch it come through the Windward Islands, significant Category 3 hurricane. Tuesday and into Wednesday, there's Haiti, there's Jamaica. The HAFS model takes Beryl right over Jamaica as a hurricane on Wednesday, and it is the forecast track from the Hurricane Center as well. Okay, so again, that's the HAFS model. We've looked at the GFS, we've looked at the European, we've looked at the HAFS. As this gets into the Caribbean, we can look at the NAM model as well. We're a little bit too far east for the NAM model to play a factor at this point in time. So there we go. All right, again, Beryl watches and warnings. I'll just go through all the graphics again. Barbados, hurricane warning. Hurricane watch in effect for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia and Grenada. Tropical storm watch, Martinique, Dominica, and Tobago. The watches will turn into warnings when we get within 36 hours of impacts. That could be tonight, at the very latest tomorrow morning. And then we'll see if the watches, the tropical storm watches, which turn into warnings, get upgraded to hurricane warnings. And then we'll see if other areas are included in tropical storm watches or warnings. Generally, these are going to be the areas that are going to be under the watches and warnings, maybe expand a little bit farther north through the Lesser Antilles, but probably not too much if the path of Beryl holds what we've got. And again, the impacts from Beryl, sustained winds of 115, but maybe now even pushing 120 or higher in a couple of spots, a storm surge of 5 to 7 feet. Your swells, your easterly swells coming in right now at 5 to 7 feet. Unbelievable. How about that? 5 to 7 foot storm surge, 10 to 14 foot swells, 3 to 6 inches of rain. That's 75 to 150 millimeters. And power outages are going to be a big problem. Obviously, in some terrain, landslides, mudslides, and some of the lower lying areas, you've got yourself the possibility for some inundation of some water as well. So I tell you what, let's see if we can here. I don't know if I need to do I'm a little concerned that we're not going to get the newest here. Let's see. Yeah, I still don't think I have the newest GFS in here. I might do one more thing real quick. If you guys want to bear with me, we'll go back to this here real quick. I might do one quick reset of my computer so we can look at this HAFS model again. And I can answer some questions while that's loading back up. So here we go. We're going to answer some questions here. Is there any possibility that the storm may take a more northerly, southerly turn from its present path within 24 hours? It's certainly plausible, right? Like, you know, these storms, you know, they don't give us a roadmap. Now, the models are very good right now with the tracks of these storms, you know. The thing that they don't have a great handle on still is the rapid intensification. So can this track in a different way? Absolutely. Is it forecast to do that? Is it something I expect it to do? No, I don't. If you again look at the HAFS A and the HAFS B, they're extremely similar. And then if you look at the European model, it's the same area as well. Now, subtle shifts could absolutely happen, right? 25 miles, something like that. But is there going to more than likely be something that takes this storm and pushes it hundreds of miles north or down closer to Trinidad and Tobago? More than likely not, okay? More than likely not. It's always plausible, and these things do, quote unquote, have minds of their own. But that being said, the models have been very consistent, right? The models have been very consistent at what it's been outputting with the track. It's been much more about the intensity coming up with that. But it's a good question. And look, you know, we can never sit here and say it's definitely gonna, you know, go in a certain path, but there's a fairly high confidence right now that within a small margin of error, we are going to have a track similar to what you're seeing on the models at this point in time. Doing a couple of updates here, guys. Give me just something real quick. All right, other questions. Let's see here. Hi from Monterey. How you doing? Good to see you. Dominica in the house. Audrey says rain in Savannah Lamar there in Jamaica. Appreciate that. Just trying to get my system to come back up here. It's not cooperating right now. Work with me. All right. Let's pull that back up. I did kind of a harder reboot of my system. Going to see if I can't get the new GFS to come on here, because that would be interesting to see. Violet says we're on the road to 1,000 likes. I appreciate it. Henry says, is there a chance that this storm on the other one tracks towards Florida? This point in time with Beryl is not supposed to have direct impacts to Florida, but the second system we'll have to wait and see. Okay, the second system right now on the 7-day from the Hurricane Center just gets it into Barbados. But that being said, of course, we expect this to move into this area on Wednesday, right? So today's Saturday, so 4 days from now. But again, the forecast track from Beryl is to have it stay in the Caribbean. If there are some models that try and bend it north, it's a much weaker system, and it would kind of just be a huge plume of tropical moisture that would get to Cuba and the Bahamas and the Turks and the Caicos and maybe portions of Florida. But again, as a core storm, no, Beryl is not expected to have any direct impacts to Florida. But I appreciate you asking the question. Okay, one more time here. Let's bring up our models. And we'll see here if I've got a newer run. I feel like I might have a bit of an update error or issue right now, because I'm not, even though I'm getting the correct plot from the Hurricane Center here, I'm not getting the actual 5 p.m. advisory, which is very unusual, but that's okay. We've been able to work around it just fine. You can see that I am getting the plots and the track right, because all of these upgraded warnings are correct on the system. Just for some reason, that pinpoint icon wasn't giving me the 5 o'clock number. Brendan asks, what are the possible chances of this system hitting Dominica? So, possible, right? Again, Dominica is under a tropical storm watch. So if you live in Dominica, you should expect tropical storm impacts. There could be the potential for some hurricane wind gusts in Dominica. That's not out of the question. To go along with 3 to 6 inches of rain and a pretty good storm surge as well. Dominica is in the crosshairs. May not be the most impactful area based on this track, but it certainly is an area of impact. And if I lived in Dominica, I would be listening to local officials, to what their messaging is, but I would also be preparing to protect property and life as well. So let's see here. I'm going to loop up now the winds, and we'll see. We'll see if we got a change here on the GFS. But again, just to note that on the Hurricane Center official forecast, you've got 115 mile an hour winds sustained, gusts to 138, and they're not that far south of Barbados. Now, these are the sustained winds, by the way, that we're looking at. We're not looking at gusts anymore. I feel like this is probably the same run. Maybe not. I mean, there you go. So sustained winds, guys, on the GFS now, 5 a.m. "29 miles from the south coast of Barbados." Sustained. So again, if that eye gets a little bit closer, we got more problems there. And already at 5 a.m., the winds are sustained in that 50 to 55. And these are sustained winds again. Now you've got sustained winds on the island around 90 or higher. You know, and again, the GFS has been a little bit weaker, but trying to get with the other models. And it's going to scare me, to be honest, what kind of intensification we actually see in the next 36 hours with very little in the way of shear or anything to really stop it, right? Switch back over here to, I haven't shown you guys the, I haven't shown you the total precipitation yet, have I? I keep mentioning 3 to 6. But here you go. Right in line. I mean, there you go. 3 to 6. 3 to 6 right there. Again, north of the center of circulation. Going to be some rain if this holds together, and wind and high impacts for Grenada, but not as much. Not as much for Trinidad and Tobago compared to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia. There's your east wind driving the rain into Martinique and Dominica. And then it's more like passing tropical downpours for Montserrat and St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda and Anguilla and St. Bartholomew. You know, indirect impacts. Fresh easterlies, over 30 miles an hour for some times. Again, you can see the impacts of the east wind here on the east side of Puerto Rico. Now, the Hurricane Center is talking about 1 to 4 inches of rain for Puerto Rico, so there could be some heavier downpours. Same thing for my friends in St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. Hey to my friends there in the Virgin Islands. And again, more rain here on the GFS because our track is closer. You can see, here's the center line from the Hurricane Center. The center line from the GFS is where that heaviest rain is, and it's just a little bit to the north. And then you follow that into Jamaica, where the GFS model has some very significant rain because it slows it down and it begins to kind of expand it out as it weakens on the GFS model. And that's why we would see the heavier rain begin to expand in size as well as the system slows up. It's very clear to see. If you notice, the swath of heavy rain is more narrow as there's more forward speed and it's a stronger, tighter system. Well, as it gets closer to Haiti and it gets closer to Jamaica on the GFS, slows down a bit, weakens a little bit, and then that rain field expands a little bit more as well. So that could be a heavy rain event for Jamaica if the GFS holds true. Winds come down, higher rain totals possible as well. But again, the GFS also starts to obliterate the system near Jamaica, and you notice that then we don't have as much rain. Now we're getting out to the 4th, so there would have been, you know, we would see the heavier rain here if we had it. Okay, guys, hit me with some questions, and then we're going to wrap this up here in just a second as well, I think. See what we got here. Oh, thank you to my moderator. Did you hit the like button? First of all, I love the fact that 14% of you said no. That actually amuses me. I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. From St. Vincent, is the track currently trending southwards? There's been no shift in the track. Nothing has changed. The Hurricane Center has been on this line since Tropical Depression 2 formed yesterday in the afternoon hours. There really has been no shift in the track. And I've been mentioning that again, that, you know, we typically talk about, oh, if the track shifts here, if the track shifts there, sure, that's still plausible, but there has been no wiggle in the Hurricane Center in where it has this. It's always been just south of Barbados and then through St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then the broader cone, St. Lucia to Grenada. Okay, Tobago just outside of that, Martinique just outside of that as well. I don't believe that there will be a big track change from the Hurricane Center unless something happens that I'm not expecting. That's what I would say. Let's see here. Get back to the live chat. Oh, we got some Q&As going up. Okay. Raining in St. Lucia. I appreciate you. Allison hit the like button. Thank you. Audio Visual, thank you, Mr. Rusty. I appreciate your question. I'm in Jamaica. If you have an opportunity in Jamaica to stock up on some supplies and it's not going to strain you in any way, it's a great idea. First of all, it's always great to have a hurricane prep anyway, right? So that you don't have to rush last minute. So if you have that opportunity with a hurricane forecast to come into your area on Wednesday, again, you know, we've talked a lot about Jamaica. We have to get through the Windward Islands first, but on this track, there will be significant impacts for Jamaica. There is more time to talk about it. There's more time for things to change. But if we go off of the Hurricane Center's track, that is significant impacts for Jamaica on Wednesday. So yes, if you have an opportunity to stock up and be a little bit more ahead and prepared, I would absolutely be doing that as well. Yeah, I was trying to, I was loading up the A-team behind the scenes as well. They're southbound. Yeah, I mean, again, if the GFS wants to trend farther south, it's going to keep it stronger. The only way that Beryl loses a fair amount of strength as it gets closer to Jamaica is if it's close enough to Hispaniola to have the land interaction and the drier air. Hispaniola is so mountainous, it can absolutely rip apart even strong storms, especially with a direct movement over the island. Even an indirect impact of the winds coming from the north, going through that mountainous terrain, sucking in a lot of drier air, can really interrupt the inner core of a strong storm. But if the GFS trends farther south, it's going to stay stronger. Okay. Now the GFS also was inputting a little bit more wind shear into this area as well. And part of that is on the eastern side of the Central American gyre. Now, these are all things we'll get into early next week as well. But there was a little bit more wind shear being produced on the east side of that gyre on the GFS compared to the European, which is another reason why it was just a little bit weaker as well. But the land interaction with Hispaniola was the bigger significance. Karen asks, is Dominica going to get strong wind? So Dominica is under a tropical storm watch. You should expect tropical storm conditions. Those are sustained winds of over 40 miles an hour, so 39. So the bottom line is for Dominica right now, on Monday, you should expect winds of over 39 miles an hour sustained with some higher gusts, maybe 2 to 4 inches of rain, and a good storm surge and some long period swells coming into the eastern side of the island. Always check in with your local officials. More than likely, the tropical storm watch will be upgraded to a tropical storm warning, which means tropical storm conditions are expected in those areas. North Barbados will get some high winds, all of Barbados. All of Barbados. Expect hurricane conditions in Barbados throughout the day on Monday. Really concerned about Barbados. Really concerned about St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, based on this track. Let's see here. Would it hit St. Kitts? No. So St. Kitts and Nevis, far enough north, indirect impacts for the northern side of the Lesser Antilles up there. So 30 mile an hour winds, you know, fresh sea conditions, right? You probably not going to want to do any boating throughout the area on Monday, or maybe even possibly on Tuesday as well. Frank asked, what about Aruba? Fantastic. Love my friends in the ABC Islands. Aruba is far enough south where there not be direct impacts from Beryl based on the actual forecast track that is from the Hurricane Center. I know you guys are desperate for some rain. That being said, there might be some moisture coming in ahead of this with this tropical wave, which is not being part of Beryl. The other chance you get, and I'll just draw this out because I've mentioned it a couple of times, the other chance you're going to get in the ABC Islands is as Beryl is right here. Okay, the broader turn of winds, and I mean in a very broad fashion, will be like this. If we're lucky, this south component to the wind pulls in some moisture from the mainland, runs it up over the ABC Islands as it tries to wrap around Beryl here in the Central Caribbean. So that would be basically Tuesday. And then once it passes you by, you'll probably dry right back out. So I hope you get a little bit of rain in the ABC Islands here from the system coming in right now, although a lot of it might stay just to your south. And if you don't, you have an opportunity on Tuesday as we see Beryl move to your north and away. with the south winds pulling in some moisture, but no direct impacts for the ABC Islands. So here's what I would say for anyone asking about Jamaica. Right now, again, the details will be borne out. If you live anywhere in Jamaica, you want to pay very close attention. Yes, the east side of the island will get the strongest winds and potentially the heaviest rain. Obviously, again, as the winds come on shore, it's the same situation for our friends in the Windward Islands. But if we have a Cat 2 hurricane close to the island, it's going to be significant enough to bring very high impacts to the entire island. And again, I hope it's not the case, but at least we have some time in Jamaica to really discuss this, because right now that forecast is for Wednesday. All right. But again, if I lived in Jamaica, I'd be keeping a really close eye based on the track and the strength from the Hurricane Center. Again, still a Cat 2. The Cat 3 right now, major hurricane, early July, the 1st of July in the Windward Islands. Let's see what it looks like right now. It's been a half second since I've actually looked at the satellite presentation. Again, guys, there's nothing really stopping this from getting stronger. The Hurricane Hunter reconnaissance aircraft will be going in and investigating Beryl tomorrow. So we'll be getting drop zone data and all of that information. And we're going to get some really good information out of that. Good outflow on all sides, very concentric. An eye wall was trying to form earlier today. It might go under a little bit of a diurnal cycle, meaning that we've lost the heat of the day. It might contract down a little bit, but typically speaking, if that is the case, it's just waiting its turn for when it gets a little bit more heat energy tomorrow to ramp right back up. So all eyes, if you will, are going to be on watching for a eye wall to form, and then we get that classic eye there in the center, and then this storm just gets stronger and stronger. And again, you know, we already had a Cat 1 with winds of 75 miles an hour, Cat 2 as we go through tomorrow, and then Cat 3 late Sunday night and into Monday. And that is the official forecast, a Category 3 hurricane in these areas as we roll into our Monday. Friends, we've been on for a bit here, haven't we? About 2.5 hours. About 2.5 hours. I appreciate it. So, here is the coverage plan at Meteo Mundo as I see it now. I am going to do another video update for the 11 p.m. advisory tonight. It'll be a little bit briefer, but it's going to cover the 11 p.m. advisory is going to be the next full advisory from the Hurricane Center. Okay, so there'll be a video update then. Not long after I'm done with this video, the 24/7 live stream will come back on. All right, so under the live tab, and if you're a subscriber with the notifications on, you'll see that. It'll just say Live Radar Hurricane Beryl. It'll be this computer running with all the newest information. Your live satellite, your live radar, your live hurricane track, your live lightning data. I'll have the wind gusts on there as well. It's a great tool in between my forecast videos to jump on, stay for 5 minutes, stay for an hour, stay as long as you like, but you get this latest information from our weather system. I jump on from time to time, chat, answer questions when I can. More than likely going back on live sometime tomorrow, and then especially on Monday morning. I don't think there's any way that I will not be on live Monday morning as we see this storm get into the Windward Islands. So we're going to have a 24/7 presence for you here. And again, beyond that, we'll see what Beryl does. We'll see what the second system does. We know it's going to be busy, but we're here for you guys at Meteo Mundo. So I'm going to wrap it up for now. For the 1,600 people plus who watched, I absolutely appreciate you. As you leave this live stream, thank you so much for liking. For those who dropped in some super things to support me in the channel, I appreciate you a lot. For those who became members on this live stream for 99 cents a month, I appreciate you guys as well. So thank you so much, friends. Again, look for another video update very late tonight, and then we'll have this 24/7 live stream going. More than likely, I'll come back on sometime tomorrow night to talk much more about it as Beryl gets closer, and then certainly be live on Monday morning as Beryl approaches the Windward Islands. Friends, you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Again, I'll see you for an update later, and then be back on live, more than likely sometime tomorrow, but I'll keep you updated. I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo. You guys take care.